are you interested in reading any of the public comments, helping me out a little bit? No?
No.
And welcome to the regular meeting of the Port Hueneme City Council. We have 2 meetings going on tonight, that of the regular City Council and also of the successor agency. We have the successor agency special meeting agenda. It is June 1st, 2020. The time is 6:30 p.m. And I would like to share with you some information before we get started. This meeting will be conducted pursuant to the provisions of the Governor's Executive Order N29-20 and the orders of the Ventura County Public Health Officer issued March 20th, 2020, Stay Well at Home order. I would like to call this meeting to order and ask you to please join me in the flag salute. Just raise your right hand and begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. So I'd like to welcome to the City Council meeting of June 1st, 2020. We are conducting this meeting pursuant to the provisions of the Governor's Executive Order and the orders of the Ventura County Public Health Officer. The council chamber, for those of you who don't know, has been closed to the public, and council members and staff are participating remotely to help play our part in minimizing the spread of COVID-19. The public has been informed in advance of the meeting how to submit all public comments to our city clerk. The city clerk has compiled all submissions and those received prior to the 5 p.m. deadline today. These have been forwarded to City Council for review prior to the meeting. They will also be read into and part of the official meeting record. May I ask the city clerk please to take roll call?
Councilmember Burke.
Here.
Councilmember Gama.
Here.
Councilmember Rollins. You're muted, sir, but I'll take your hand raised for a here.
Okay.
Thank you, sir. Mayor Pro Tem Munoz-Schnapp.
Here.
And Mayor Hernandez.
Here. Thank you very much. And now we come to the inspirational moment. And today we have Councilmember Gama, who's going to deliver our message of inspiration. Councilman?
Thank you. Thank you very much. I'm gonna get organized here. Okay. Back in March, I completed reading Unstoppable by Nick Vujicic. I was fortunate enough to have seen Nick speak twice in the last 10 years. If you don't know who Nick is, he's an inspirational leader, international best-selling author, motivational speaker, evangelist, thrill seeker, surfer, skydiver, married man, father of 4, a comedian, and a Ventura County resident. His first book was titled Life Without Limbs. It might surprise you to know Nick was born without arms and legs, yet in his own words, and I quote, "I have a ridiculously good life despite my disabilities." Nick has been an international inspiration to millions of people from all walks of life. For me, most notably is his work with high school students on the subject of bullying. If you have not already, please search him out on YouTube and view his presentation to high school students of El Centro High School. On top of his many accomplishments, he learned to surf in Kauai with Bethany Hamilton being his surf instructor. Bethany is an international inspiration in her own right, as she lost her arm to a tiger shark while surfing in Kauai, and she has learned to surf with just one arm. A movie was made about her remarkable recovery, and I strongly encourage you to view this movie as it is inspirational beyond belief. We are all struggling right now with COVID-19 and its disruption of our economy and life as we knew it. We are also struggling with all the civil unrest. It's difficult for us to cope, and it's difficult to understand why. Life has to come with so many problems. Many are experiencing depression and other mental health issues related to all this turmoil. I've learned no matter how bad you think you have it, there's always someone with greater challenges than you who is making a ridiculously good life for themselves. So to anyone in our community who is struggling at the moment, know that life is challenging for all of us. None of us are immune from life's struggles, and we all need to be inspired from time to time. Fortunately, there are so many acts of inspiration all around the world, but we have to be interested in seeing and believing in good. The news media mostly brings us negative stories, so you have to actively look for inspiration. I hope we all can agree that Bethany and Nick are inspirations because of what they've overcome. They are also inspiring because they seek to help others overcome life's challenges. Now back to Nick's book, Unstoppable. On page 219, he shares a story of what a life-changing experience looks like. The word inspire means create a feeling, especially a positive one in a person. I want to paraphrase from a section of Nick's book. There was a very attractive high school student who was at the top of her world in high school. She was popular, she was well-known, she was engaged all across the spectrum. And her mom one day said, "You're going to a camp for disabled children." This girl fought and fought and fought her mom and refused to go, and she had to go kicking and screaming. And she finally went to the camp, and she went through the orientation. And on the day that she got to meet her adult companion, who was a Down syndrome person, the lady came out of the bus and immediately gave her a hug and told her, "I'm so excited for you to be my best friend for this week." That one embrace changed this young lady's heart and directed her to a career of special education. So my niece, Vanessa Marie Gama, has Down syndrome, and she's now 25 years old and has a wonderful life. She is always with a loving smile and a warm embrace. She always is ready to go. She loves unconditionally. World's Down Syndrome Day was on March 21st, 2020. And it just so happens that was about the moment I was reading this book, Unstoppable. So when I read the account of the feisty teenager forced to go to camp, I immediately began thinking of our Vanessa and the joy she has for life. So know that during these unprecedented times, we all have the capacity to know good. That's K-N-O-W. We all have the capacity with simple acts of kindness to make this world a more enjoyable and better place. Do you see the police officers that took a knee in Minneapolis? Or did you see the peaceful protesters standing before a line of police officers to protect a store? Just like the teenagers whose mom forced her to camp for disabled adults, one little act can change our life or history for that matter. So when you're feeling down, think about how it is that Bethany and Nick were able to overcome such odds and have ridiculously good lives. When you're feeling down, think about how it is that Vanessa and all the other Down syndrome adults can love unconditionally each and every day. I'd like to close by quoting Nick: "No arms, no legs, no worries." Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman Gama. That was wonderful. Okay, we now are at the point of our agenda where we approve the agenda for tonight's meeting. Understand that there is a request to pull item 8. Mr. City Manager, do you want to discuss this item real quick and explain why we're pulling this item off the agenda?
This item was pulled in recognition of the development of a formal process to select all points of recognition and renaming protocols for any and all potential nominees for the honor of having their name associated with a significant part of Port Hueneme's facilities, parks, recreation, and infrastructure.
And Mr. City Attorney, do we need a motion on this to pull this item, or do we just approve the agenda in its entirety with it amended to omit item 8?
The council may approve the agenda in its entirety with the omission of item 8.
Thank you very much.
So, Madam Mayor, I do have something that I will recuse myself from item number 7.
Okay, thank you. All right, can I have a motion and a second to approve the amended agenda? And we'll take a voice vote on this.
So moved.
Councilman Berg moves.
Second.
Councilman Rollins seconds. All in favor? Aye.
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 Any opposed? Okay, thank you. The motion carries. I should say that there were letters of support and opposition that were received for this item, for item 8. They have been posted and will be part of the official record and available on the website, but this will not be read out loud due to the item being pulled. Any public comments under 500 will be read into the record. Okay, so I have a number of general public comments here before me, and I'll go ahead and read them. I have 4 submittals, one beginning with Tom Figg, one from Dan Alpern, one from Ricardo Holden, and one from David Scrivener. Is that correct? Madam Clerk?
Mr. Scrivener's was pulled. It was over the 500 word limit.
Okay.
And he didn't have time to resubmit those comments.
Oh, okay, so I'll take him off. All right, so I'll begin with the public comment from Tom Figg. Dated City Council meeting of June 1st, 2020 to Mayor and City Council from Tom Figg. Subject, open forum, public comments, if item 8 is withdrawn from the agenda. As you know, I submitted a letter dated May 30th, 2020 regarding agenda item number 8. The upshot of my comments question both the merits and process for renaming a portion of Hueneme Beach Walkway in honor of former council member Jonathan Sharkey. A similar ill-fated request for rededicating Hueneme Pier was presented to the council in April last year. Then as now, the proposal is flawed for lack of community consensus. Meanwhile, the city manager intends to withdraw agenda item 8 from the agenda. While this action might seem prudent, it begs fundamental questions of transparency and public engagement. Deflecting discussion amounts to unequal treatment for those who oppose the proposal. Proponent letters, for instance, were solicited in advance of the agenda's publication to the disadvantage of those who were not similarly informed of the matter. Whether as part of today's meeting or as a separately agendized item for the next council regular session, the following questions deserve a response. 1, who among the council initiated agenda item 8, and was the full council consulted before its placement on the agenda? If not, why not? And what is the process and authority for having such matters agendized? 2, what is the explanation for support letters that are dated before the actual agenda was published? How and why would such letters be submitted before the general public even knew the item would be discussed? Is this a possible Brown Act violation? Number 3, all of the written comments that presently appear under agenda item 8 support Sharkey's recognition. Shouldn't letters from those that disagree be given equal dignity through publication and distribution, not merely filed with meeting minutes? Number 4, how was the city manager's memo regarding withdrawal of agenda item 8 made public? Why, for instance, wasn't the memo amended to the online agenda packet along with written comments that were received after the agenda was published? In summation, this unfortunate situation may be an opportunity for the council to delve into a broader discussion of government process in general. Issues of interest include the delayed activation of the Citizens Advisory Commission, limited consultation with the Measure U Citizens Oversight Committee, and lack of public involvement in real estate decisions made in closed session. Perhaps these topics as a whole are worthy of their own place on the next council agenda. And I think this would be appropriate to say that we are restricted from commenting on these submittals. So we will have no comment in response to Mr. Figg's statement. And then I continue with our next public comment, and this is from Ricardo Holden. Public comment for the next city council meeting is a subject title, and it reads, unfortunately, in this day and era, racism exists, which is a touchy subject. I was victim to a racism last week by a racist because I believe to be retaliation for voicing my concerns about Port Hueneme issues and my public comment in the last city council meeting. Jeffrey Bellamore posted insults toward me through comments on my post about the owls, where I mentioned the improper use of a drone by his friend David Doctor on the Port Hueneme neighborhood Facebook group page, and started making racist posts and threats in messages. Here is one of the threats. Quote, what has bothered you so much to cause this problem? And if I fly out, which I can in a heartbeat, there would be no talking. The only trash that would be picked up is you after you wake up, close quote. He referenced my doing beach cleanups in the threat. Here is another message he sent. Quote, Ricardo, are you even an American? Question mark. Where is Lucy? You're in my country and you will respect it, or you need to go back to where you came from. Do you have a green card? Ricardo, LMAO, close quotes. Unfortunately, Port Hueneme police are not able to do anything, so instead the public should know. This is believed to be, as you can see by the photo included showing they communicate, use nicknames, and are friends on social media, David Doctor's pal that verbally berated me over my objection to David's use of a drone to film the owls, which also happens to be against the law. I removed David Doctor from the Port Hueneme neighborhood page for this post because he was using this post to poke sticks at me, as he acknowledged in the comments. David Doctor happens to be Laura Hernandez's boyfriend, who has tried to insult and challenge me multiple times on his social media pages, as well as the 805 community board page, because I made a public comment I made at the last city council meeting that pointed out my objection to Laura's interview and his drone footage that appeared to invite people to our beach during the pandemic. If the public is going to be threatened, challenged, and insulted by people close to city officials because they make public comments, we have a serious issue that needs to be addressed. I have included screenshots that I know will not be visually presented or read, however, for reference and for the public record. One of the screenshots is rant the David Doctor posted on the 805 community board challenging me to meet him at the beach. The post is much more than 500 words, so I could not include it in this public comment. If anyone would like copies of these screenshots, feel free to reach out to me. The next public comment is from Dan Alpern, and there are several emails referring to his public comment, which should have been submitted at our last meeting, but instead for some reason we're reading it tonight. I don't think it was properly received. So let me continue, and I'll just read the public comment portion. Is that okay, Christy, rather than all the email exchanges?
Yes, that's okay.
Okay.
And he also provided a clarifying paragraph, so I would maybe read the full public statement and then just read that short paragraph at the top that's clarifying.
The one that says, Laura, to be crystal clear.
Mm-hmm.
What I want is for the curbs to be painted. This is in regards to red curbs in Panoma Street area. The date is Friday, May 29th, 2020. He writes, Laura, to be crystal clear, what I want is for the curbs to be painted and the fire hydrants to be safe and available in case they are needed. To see hydrants across the street from Station 53 buried in bushes and cars parked in front of fire hydrants on a regular basis drives me nuts. Thank you, Dan Alpern. And then there's another email to me, Laura, thanks for your note. To follow up on any feedback to date, I have not received any feedback to my email sent on May 18, 2020. Copied below, I consider it a simple to solve public safety issue. I understand these are tough times and I appreciate your attention to this matter. Very respectfully, Dan Alpern. So here is his public comment to the City of Port Hueneme, City Council, and Public Works Department. This response below from the City of Port Hueneme, Charles Cable, PEQSD/PLEED AP, Principal Engineer, City of Port Hueneme Public Works Department, is ridiculous. Based on this logic, we don't need traffic signs or traffic lights either, since it's all in the CBC. There would be no need for a parking enforcement officer based on this logic, nor for any red curbs in the city at all. We don't paint red curbs for hydrants, since the California Vehicle Code states that it's illegal to park within 15 feet of a fire hydrant. This is common knowledge, and we stopped painting the curbs red. They should call parking enforcement if they see a person parking in front of a fire hydrant. Parking enforcement works limited hours and is not available on nights and weekends to respond, as I've advised many times. The parking on Panoma Street, and from what I hear, other parts of Port Hueneme, is out of control. In this area, people park in front of fire hydrants at the Port of Hueneme during events, and on the street near the church on Scott. The port and fire station have both referred me to the city for this issue. WRT, the area indicated near the pot shop Emerald Perspective, I'll remind you all that this is new and has not been there since 2014. There is a significant increase in traffic for this business. Customers and employees park right on the corner, and there is a danger of accidents from a right turn onto Pomona from Pleasant Valley due to the lack of visibility. Some storm drain curbs are painted red, others are not. The curb by the hydrant at 2nd and Scott is not painted red. Some of the main equipment curbs are painted red on Panoma. Bus stops and mailbox stop curbs are painted red on 2nd Street. One fire hydrant curb in front of the Port of Hueneme is painted red, the other is not. The fire hydrants on Pearl at Panoma and 2nd Street curbs are not. The fire hydrant curb at Fire Station 53 on Scott is not painted red, but the curb access for their driveway is painted red. Pictures included for reference. There is a reason that some of the curbs, and he emphasizes some in caps, of the curbs are painted red in this immediate area. Some fire hydrants, bus stops, driveways, and postal boxes. And those are in parentheses. That same reason should apply to the rest of Panoma Street too. Please help. Kind regards, Dan Alpern. And I won't read his address, if that's okay. Okay. Am I done with this one? Because it's still in the middle of other emails. Christy, can you advise or?
Yes, ma'am. That was the majority of his public comment. Thank you.
Okay. So those were the 3 that we had for general comment.
Correct.
Okay, very good. So we'll now move on to presentations, and we'll start with the mini mansions presentation by Mr. Rick Schroeder. Mr. Schroeder, are you on?
I think I'm on now. Can everyone hear me?
I can hear you loud and clear.
Good. Well, thank you, Madam Mayor, members of the City Council, city staff. I am Rick Schrader. I'm president of Many Mansions, and it's an honor and a privilege to be able to address the City Council tonight and talk a little bit about Many Mansions, what we do, just a very brief overview, some of our upcoming affordable housing development projects in Ventura County, and then ways that we could hopefully assist your city in your affordable housing needs. As you can see, we are celebrating our 40-year anniversary. We were founded in 1979. And this is a picture of our Ormond Beach Villas apartments, which is right down the road on Hueneme and Saviors in Oxnard. And I'll talk a little bit about this in greater depth, but this is our most recent affordable housing community that opened in October of 2019. And it's exclusively for our veterans, our veteran population. Okay, so next. Well, as I mentioned, we are celebrating our 40-year anniversary. We are a nonprofit affordable housing and service provider. That means our core mission is to develop affordable housing for those in the community most in need, those that are low income, extremely low income, seniors, people that are homeless, veterans, transition-aged youth, and not only provide the housing and develop the housing, but also to provide on-site life-enriching services for them. So far, we have developed and we operate and manage 16 affordable housing communities throughout Ventura County. They're all apartment buildings. We have 538 units of restricted housing. So every one of our housing units is restricted to someone who is low income, extremely low income, homeless, whatever. And indeed, we are the leader of supportive housing. Many Mansions houses the most formerly homeless individuals and families in Ventura County, and we provide on-site services for all of our residents. This is a picture actually of a project that is currently under construction. It's in Los Angeles County in Silmar Terrace called Summit View, and we're about halfway through construction. This is also a property that will be exclusively for veterans, all for homeless veterans. So next. Well, there's been lots of discussion on affordable housing and the need for affordable housing. And the problem really stems with the fact that housing is too expensive. Throughout Ventura County, the average rent for a 2-bedroom apartment is $2,000 a month. And to be affordable, that means the household, to pay only 30% of their income toward rent, has to make $80,000 a year. Well, you can imagine before this lockdown, that was a very difficult situation for many of our families in Ventura County. And of course, it's even more difficult now for so many of us. So as a result, we have a crisis because we have a lack of affordable housing. And this does result in increased homelessness in the West County and the East County. Both the county and Port Hueneme have seen increases in homelessness over the years, especially chronically homeless. That is for households, families, individuals that have been homeless for more than a year. And the only solution, we could talk about all the different solutions, but really the only solution is to develop more affordable housing, especially housing that is for our chronically or for our extremely low income households with on-site services. Next. So Many Mansions does this in a couple of ways. We acquire apartment buildings and renovate them. But mostly what we do now, especially in the last 10 or 15 years, is we build new apartment buildings. We build new apartment buildings. All of the units are restricted to be affordable. The financing is rather complicated in affordable housing. We get our money to build the housing from a variety of government loans, tax credits, tax-exempt bonds. And we often joint venture with other partners. Many of our recent affordable housing developments are in partnership with the Area Housing Authority of Ventura County, but we partner with private developers, government agencies, and others. Our housing is very high quality, and I really do want to stress that. Our housing is built to serve the community, and it's built to serve it for many, many years. We have the latest energy saving features, water saving features, design features. It's very, very high quality. All the rents are affordable. All the rents are geared toward that household's income. And as a general rule, Many Mansions does the property management. We do the day-to-day management of the property. And that makes us accountable to the community. We're not a developer that just builds the housing, sells it, and leaves. We are part of the community, we run the property, and we're answerable to the neighbors and to the community in general. Next. So I want to come back to Ormond Beach Villas. Again, as I said, it opened just in October. It's fully occupied. All 40 units are restricted to veterans. About half the units are for veterans who are also homeless. Mixture of units, 1, 2, and 3 bedrooms. All the units have patios or decks. It costs $20 million. And we have a variety of service programs for the veterans and their families. We've partnered with the Boys and Girls Club of Port Hueneme and Oxnard to provide after-school children's programs. We provide veteran services, case management services through the county, through LA Family Housing, through other service providers. So we want to provide what assistance we can for our residents, especially those that were homeless, so they can get back in the community and be productive members and really become full members of the community. So this is just a picture of Ormond Beach. Next. Really what distinguishes us from, say, maybe government agencies that develop housing is our service programs. As I said, we want to help all of our residents achieve. So we have a variety of programs for the children, usually some type of after-school homework program, a summer camp program, scholarship programs. We do a lot with our formerly homeless residents, counseling, case management, job development, job skills, veterans and families. We want to break that cycle of poverty that many of our families have faced, and we want to create more self-sufficiency and more integration. So I think this is one of the distinguishing features of many mansions, is that we just don't provide housing, but also opportunities. Next. Though it's been challenging the last couple of months, of course, we cannot provide services directly to residents in terms of face-to-face contact. Nevertheless, we are trying the best that we can. We are fully engaged with our residents. We're doing lots of meal deliveries, especially for our most needy residents. We're working with the children through Zoom and other online features to help them with homework or become, tutoring. Working with our resident adults, again, trying to help them through their fears and their panics. We have a resident needs fund where we help our residents with household items that they may need, repairs, rent assistance, things like that. And we're still developing affordable housing. But I will say it's been challenging over the last couple of months, but we do seem to be operating pretty well. Next. Well, this is what we want to do. We want to develop new housing. We want to take a parcel like this and develop that to serve the community. This is a parcel in Oxnard. Next slide, please. And we want to turn it into something like this. This is our Central Terrace project that we've been working on in Oxnard. This will be around 72 units. Again, supportive housing for individuals and families that are currently homeless. Next. And this is just a map of where this particular site is. And I would say that Oxnard has been a very good partner. They've recently changed a lot of their zoning to allow higher density, which also assists in us developing new housing. And then they've streamlined some of the approval processes related to development as well. Next. This is just a picture of our Hillcrest Villas apartments in Thousand Oaks. This opened up in 2013, and it's really been one of our most successful developments. 1, 2, and 3 bedrooms laid out, very nice design. Again, half the units are reserved for people that are homeless. So it may depend on the household, but a typical 2-bedroom apartment would be only around, again, depending on your income, maybe $500 or $600 a month. And this is a picture of the community building where we run our programs. Next, please. This is a picture of a new project that will start construction in September in Fillmore. This is a family project called Mountain View, right in the heart of Fillmore. Again, geared toward families. We are doing this in partnership with the Area Housing Authority of Ventura County. So all of the units will have a built-in a Section 8 subsidy. So this will really be targeted for extremely low income families. And again, we're working with the school district and the library. They actually have a part of our community building will be a branch almost, or at least an outlet of the public library. Next. This is a new project that we're working in Camarillo with. Very interesting. This is on Berry Street and Lewis Road. This was a site that was owned by the city of Camarillo. Housing costs, or development costs, are very high, and one of the high costs, of course, is the price of land. So this is a project where the city will continue to own the land, which is fine. And they sort of put it out to bid, and we bid on the development. This is, again, 60 units, mostly for families. But as part of the development, there will be 8 townhouse units that will be built as a for sale project. So families will actually buy those particular townhouse units. Otherwise, it'll all be rental housing. But because the city owns the land and we don't have to pay for the land, that reduces the cost of the development and makes it much easier. Next one. Also, this is a new project we're working on in Moore Park, a scattered site. This is also on city-owned land, several different parcels. So the city has a couple of different parcels of land. They wanted affordable housing, and we were able to group those parcels that are not necessarily next to each other into one development. So again, that makes the management and the finance much easier because we can do it in one development, even though the parcels themselves are not contiguous or even necessarily even close to each other. But it'll be a total of 56 scattered site units. Next. And this is just our most recent project on county land, Lewis Road, by the Rain Project and others out on Lewis Road. This is also county-owned land that we're also in development with the Area Housing Authority. This will also be supportive housing for those that are homeless and are elderly. Our homeless population is becoming increasingly elderly. So this will be kind of a special project for the elderly population, but it'll also be a component for the TAY population, transition-aged youth who are ages 18 to 24 who are homeless as well. So kind of a mixed population, but it'll be fully supportive with on-site services from many mansions and the county. So we're just in the very early stages of this particular development. Next. So we have quite a bit going on despite the pandemic. Construction is still going on, development is still going on, the need continues. So we would love to work with Port Hueneme in any way that we can to create more affordable housing, either through new construction or rehab of existing properties. Any land that the city owns, or there's opportunities, we'd love to talk to them about that. Of course, as many mansions, as all nonprofits, we're always looking for volunteer opportunities to do projects at our various sites or donations or things like that. We're currently not giving any tours of our properties, but certainly anybody out there that's interested in us, please look at our website, look at our Facebook page. And once we're back where we can meet people again, we'd love to get to know anyone that's interested in affordable housing or many mansions. So I'd be happy to answer any questions that you might have, but otherwise I really thank you for giving me this opportunity to talk to the council and talk to the community.
Well, thank you, Mr. Schrader. We really appreciate your presentation. I've always wanted to know what Mini Mansions is about, and you're doing some amazing work out there. Council, do you have any questions for Mr. Schrader?
I do.
I see Richard, Councilman Rollins, and then Madam Mayor Pro Tem will go next.
Yes, can you hear me?
I can hear you, yes.
First of all, I want to commend you on the Veterans Facility. I went to the opening. They are well built, and I like the way that you coordinate with the Boys and Girls Club and the Clinicus Health, and the fact that it's various different types of units from 1 bedroom to 3 bedrooms. So you got a nice variety of people coming into it. My one question, is that one filled to capacity right now, or are there still vacancies in that particular facility?
It is full. It has been filled to capacity for the past couple of months. It was somewhat of a challenge in filling it, just simply because we could not find a lot of large or families that would fill our 3-bedroom units that were veterans and also homeless. So we had some difficulties filling the last couple of units, but it's been 100% occupied for the last couple of months.
Oh, great.
The Housing Authority of Oxnard is still maintaining a waiting list. So anybody that is interested, they should still get on to the waiting list.
So just 2 other quick questions. One is, how small a lot do you folks come in to build units on? I know that's a fairly large plot of land, and I saw some of the other developments that you have that are fairly large plots of land. How small a plot do you work with?
It depends on the allowed density. As a rule for new construction, it's almost, to be financially feasible, it should be able to have about 40 units for an apartment. Okay. So if we can fit 40 units, again, with the required parking and everything like that, then generally it's feasible and we could develop it. Properties that are, go ahead.
No, go on. I'm sorry.
I was going to say, we do smaller projects, but that requires a lot more other type of financing from the state or other sources, which if it's available, great. If it's not, then we can't.
And as I said, like it looked like an excellent use of land that the veterans. One of the things I just curious on Hueneme Road and Saviors, on the other side of the auto place, there seems to be a vacant piece of property that's been there for many, many years vacant. Has there been any thought of, expanding what you've done on the, I guess it would be on the north side of the auto?
Yeah. There's been a lot of thought, yes, but so far we haven't been successful. Okay. But ideally, that would be an excellent place to expand the property, yes.
Okay, that's all.
Madam Mayor Pro Tem?
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. So thank you, Mr. Shorter, for your presentation. Is your organization similar to Cabrillo?
Yeah, I didn't quite hear all of that. We are very similar to Cabrillo. We do many of the same kinds of developments. They historically have done a lot more farm worker housing, where we typically do a lot more supportive housing for people that were homeless. So it's just a same kind of thing, but maybe a different emphasis on the populations.
And how do you go about vetting the applicants for these areas? Because you had qualified them as saying that you build them but also manage them. So how does that go about?
We do manage
a unit.
Yeah, we do extensive screening for that. Unfortunately, our own waiting list is closed. We had over 3,000 households on our waiting list. But generally, we draw people off the waiting list. They fill applications. We do background checks. We have certain criteria that they must pass and they must follow. So it's an extensive process.
Are they typically people from the same community that you're building your units in?
Absolutely, yes, yeah, definitely. Yeah, we want to draw people that are from that community. Those are our most successful residents because they already, especially if you're working with them for job development or life skills, social skills, they can draw on people within the community that they already know or have some relationship to or ties to. So yes, we're drawing from the local community.
Okay. And my last question, and maybe you had it earlier in your presentation, how many places do you have right now that, you know, come under the banner of many mansions?
16 apartment buildings.
Primarily in Ventura County?
The
Well, I saw the
16
one in Fillmore, but
Yeah. All 16 currently are in Ventura County. But in a couple of years, we will have 3 additional in Los Angeles County and hopefully another 5 or so in Ventura County. So we're growing quite rapidly. But we were founded and are based in Ventura County, and that's really where most of our activity is.
yeah, I remember you folks when I was at United Way. You were one of the United Way
Oh, sure.
agencies
Yeah.
back in the day. Yeah. All right. Thank you.
Madam Mayor Pro Tem, I just wanted to suggest you check your connection because your sound is not coming through as clear as we're used to.
Okay. Maybe I'll change the connection.
Okay. Councilman Goma.
Thank you for your presentation. I just wanted to commend you on a beautiful facility. And I think your low maintenance landscaping is something that we may be able to learn from because you really do a really good job on that. And I really commend you. And I love driving by that area because it looks so nice. And I like to peer down the alleyway and see the beautiful wall and stuff. So just want to commend you on a great job.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Any other comments for Mr. Schroeder? Well, Mr. Schroeder, thank you so much for your presentation. Maybe we'll see you back, but thank you
I
again
hope
for
so.
your time. And keep
Thank
up
you
the
very
good
much.
work. Yes,
Good.
keep up the good work. Thank you.
Good. Thank you.
Okay, moving on to our next item. We'll have a COVID-19 community update by Chief Salinas.
Hello, everyone. Good evening. Let me go ahead and share the screen and get this up. Okay, so I am presenting council with a COVID-19 update. The last update was on May 18th, which was our previous council meeting. So all of this will be in addendum or in addition to the last meeting. This was the slide I showed council at the last meeting. This is where we were at 2 weeks ago at 5 p.m., just before our council meeting. Items that I would like you to note on this chart is how many people were tested at that time, which was 15,000, how many total cases we had, which is 764, and how many were actually in the city of Port Hueneme. That number was actually corrected right before the council meeting, and that should actually have shown a 16. So as we move along, this is where we are at now as of 1:30 today. We now have almost double the test cases, which is 27,966, which is an additional 12,416 cases tested just in these last 2 weeks. We've had an additional 388 positive cases in the county, 9 additional deaths, and 6 additional cases in the city of Port Hueneme. Here's a graph which really shows how we fare across the county against other cities. 2 cities that I'd like to point out that have struggled these last 2 weeks include the cities of Fillmore and Santa Paula. You can see the city of Santa Paula nearly doubled their cases from 60 to 119. They are about 7,000 to 8,000 more in population than the city of Port Hueneme. And then also the city of Fillmore almost tripled in the last 2 weeks. And everyone else has just gone up proportionately based on their populations. As you can see there in the city of Port Hueneme, we are still doing very, very well with 22 cases over these last 3 months. When we talk about our population, we talk about infectious rate. At our last presentation, the county was just under 25, which is the goal. Over these last 14 days, it has jumped to 27.29 over the last 14 days. And the city of Port Hueneme is faring pretty well at only 8.29 per 100,000 cases. Population, excuse me. So this graph here, you can grab from VC Emergency at any time. It is a summary of the city of Port Hueneme. It shows our population, the number of positive cases we have, and our actual incident rate per 100,000, where you see right there is 8.29 per 100,000, with the goal of the county being 25. We didn't have this graph at the last council meeting, and I believe someone had asked about deaths and if we had had any in the city of Port Hueneme. The chart there on the right breaks down how many deaths have been in the county and in which cities. The city of Port Hueneme thus far has had 1 death within our zip code, with Simi Valley leading the county at 9. And as you can also see the breakdown by ethnicity, there have been 10 Latinos and 21 Caucasians that have died as a result of COVID in our county, and those are the 2 top categories right now. We've had 5 deaths in the past 14 days in the county of Ventura. In the previous presentation, I believe Council Member Schnapps had asked me about a breakdown of ethnicity. And so this is where we are at right now with positive cases in the county based on race and ethnicity, with 57% for Latinos and 29% for white. And as you can see the breakdown there, which is peculiar, as I noted on the previous slide, that and I'll go back, as you can see, a majority of the deaths have been the white race or ethnicity and not the Latino population, even though they lead the county in positive tests. Since our last council meeting, this was something that we did at the beach that garnered a great deal of attention. These are the social distancing markers that we have placed at the beach. They are separated anywhere between 50 to 60 feet from each other and are now being used by our beach goers to, in essence, create these designated social distancing zones. And so now, with them being in place almost for 2 weeks now, people are now using them, and as they go out, you'll see that people have figured out what they're there for. And just this past weekend, I would say we had about a 90% compliance rate in people actually using these markers to set up along the beach. And we use delineators for several reasons. One, they could be buried and not easily removed. We could put signs on them. They will also not be washed away by the tide, since we could bury them at least a little bit, and people cannot tamper with them. And so they have proven very, very successful. And the sign that you see in the middle is the small sign that we actually have on these delineators on the beach. We currently have over 125 delineators set out on the beach at this time on both sides of the pier. This is our most recent updated sign that we have posted at the beach. It recommends that everyone use the social distancing markers, as well as the prohibited activity on the beach, whether it be dogs on the sand, bicycles, and operating in large groups outside of your household, and notifying people that the pier, playground equipment, tables, barbecues, and picnic areas are still closed. Of note, let's talk about the pier. We've gotten a lot of requests in regards to the pier and when that will open. We met with Public Works. I plan on meeting with Kevin Brannon from Real Guppies in the next couple of days to walk the pier. We are creating a social distancing plan so that we can open up the pier, which includes dividing the pier in half. So traffic walks one way in one direction and back the other direction, along with creating small social distancing zones for the fishermen. So everyone has their particular area to fish from and actually create social distancing between each zone. Since our last meeting, there's actually been 4 modifications to the public health order. Here are some of the most recent modifications, which includes the opening of hair salons and barbershops. Retail stores have opened. Many of you have seen the Ross store has opened, and the morning they opened, there was a long line for people to get in. They were excited about the opening of this store. Many of you have seen car line celebrations for graduations are now permitted. Places of worship / churches are now allowed to open as long as they follow the state guidance. If you're a golfer, golf carts are now allowed. Sport fishing is now allowed. HOA pools have and can reopen, and passive recreation is allowed. Things that are still not allowed are eyebrow waxing, nail salons. Those are still being looked at by the state. Let's see here. Here is a map of all the businesses that are in the middle of getting inspected or providing their attestations with the county. The green dots show that they have been inspected and approved. The yellow dots show that they still need an environmental inspection, and the white dots show that they have yet to be inspected. And the blue dot shows that they still need a reinspection. So in terms of economic update, the County Board of Supervisors recently approved a $20 million economic stabilization and recovery program, which will provide relief to small businesses by extending $5,000 grant loans to address payroll support, rent, leasing payments, personal protective equipment, as well as other protocols for reopening, such as cleaning services, signage, and additional security. And eligibility for these loans require that this business cannot have made more than $2 million in an annual, during any 1 year in the last 2 years. And the second part of that program is a housing assistance program, which provides assistance to families for past due rent in order to avoid eviction. That concludes my brief COVID-19 presentation. If anyone has any questions, I'd be more than happy to answer them.
Thank you very much, Chief. Any questions for Chief Salinas? I see Councilman Rollins. Go ahead.
Yes, I've been at the beach and looked at the various different steps you've taken to make it safe for our community, and I commend you on that. Really bring up again, I've received a number of different calls from people who participate in exercise programs, and in many cases, the exercise program not only provides physical but mental fitness to the people because they get an opportunity to be around other people. Is there any movement at all as far as similar to like the guppy fishing and things like that, where you can any movement to make the exercise program perhaps outdoors, be it at a parking lot or at a basketball court where people can socially be distant but still be able to participate? I know if they're going to be opening up churches, there's a lot of examples that I've seen already that just by nature, people are going to be a whole lot closer. And is there an opportunity to do it outside? I guess as another alternative, is there any kind of an way that the city could work with some of our city senior exercise to do perhaps some kind of a Zoom exercise program at the very least where, you know, they could participate in it?
So in regards to the Zoom exercise program, I'm going to have to default that question to our recreation director, Anna Hanley. In regards to outdoor activity for fitness programs or these senior exercise programs, right now the state is still prohibiting large gatherings except for people outside of your household. Now, I know the churches are allowed to gather up to 100 people as long as they practice social distancing. So I do foresee some type of guidelines soon from the state, and thereby influencing the county to put something into effect which will allow outdoor activity for that type of activity.
Yeah, because it just doesn't make sense, I guess, if you're in an enclosed church with 100 people breathing the same air, but somehow you're prohibiting people spread out well less than 100 people and not being able to exercise. Just I guess a comment
Yes.
on my.
The dilemma with that is that in churches, people can wear masks, as where when you're outside doing activity, it is probably discouraged or not recommended for senior citizens to be wearing masks while participating in rigorous activity of any nature. So that might be part of the dilemma as well.
The other comment, I guess it's a personal comment that I had seen. I know that the parking is the parking program that you've had with the every other space has worked quite well, and in fact, like it's been filled to capacity. Is there any thought about like rather expanding it to every other parking on the street itself? Also, I gather people are able to park at the parking lot adjacent to the Ocean View Pavilion. I'm wondering if there's any, unless you know that that's an available parking spot, like a lot of people go through and figure that they can't get a spot and go home. While I went the other day and there was loads of spaces in that parking lot just adjacent to the Ocean View Pavilion. And I wonder if there's any kind of signs or directions that people can go to park there.
So in regards to street parking, we opened up street parking on Ventura Road because it's 1 to 2 hour parking along that stretch. So it allows for turnover. We are gonna be opening up street parking on Surfside probably as part of our last phase, for the primary reason that it helps expand our walkways and our bicycle lanes along that thoroughfare where there's quite a few people using it on a regular basis. And so that extra room along Surfside, along that bike lane where people would normally be parked, creates more space and allows for more social distancing. Now, in regards to the parking lots, we have opened up parking lots A along with B, along with some parking along Ocean View. Parking lot E has been open. There is signage as you drive in that warns people using this parking lot that it is a paid parking facility, just to warn them so they make sure they use the parking machines. If we do encounter a busy weekend, such as the upcoming 4th of July in about 5 weeks, we will be opening up parking lot C as well. Because people are coming out to Port Hueneme Beach, we may be actually opening up parking lot C even earlier than that, depending on the weekend traffic and the weather that we has been forecasted for that weekend.
Okay. Yeah, if there's any kind of a way that there's some signage that if the parking lot is full, there's that alternative space, because if you don't know it's there, a lot of times it's enough off the beaten path that people, especially from outside, aren't going to know to park there.
Yes, sir.
Mayor,
If I may.
Mayor, may I make an announcement really quickly?
Yes, please.
Mayor Pro Tem Munoz Schnapp had to leave the meeting at 7:30. I just wanted to officially announce that into the record.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you. Sorry for the interruption.
No problem.
If I may.
Go ahead, Councilman Gama.
Thank you. If I may suggest a couple things, I think what I'm having, and I know it's these guidelines are coming from the state, but if you go to the Ralph's Shopping Center, everyone is using every available parking spot. So is beach parking more dangerous than Ralph's? And I say that kind of tongue in cheek, that because when the weather's really good at the parking and we're using every other parking lot and it fills up, then people are walking in because they're going to park where they have to park, and then they're walking in. And so then it kind of needlessly crowds up the walking path. And then in regards to parking lot C, that's primarily where the surfers park because they travel down towards Perkins to surf. And I was wondering if we could just think about opening up the parking lots in full and spreading people out, because there's a little conflict in the logic when you go down Surfside Drive across from the VFW. That free parking lot is constantly full, and it's not every other parking spot. Same thing at Miranda Park. It's, you know, parking like you're at Ralph's. So I'm wondering if and I'm a little concerned that if we do max out parking, then people are going to be clogging up the walkways and stuff. So I was just wondering if why it is that we're alternating parking lots and then at Ralph's it's not.
Councilmember Gama, that is a very, very good question. And the explanation behind that is early on when the beaches were open and in a means of helping limit the crowds at the beach cities were doing every other spot, and it would allow also for the crowd to spread along the beach. And so now that things have softened and lightened quite a bit, that is actually something that we can revert to, and that is reopen the parking lots in their full capacity. We are just trying to kind of spread the crowd along our beachfront so not everyone parks in parking lot A and goes straight out to the beachfront, and as opposed to spreading everyone out on the beach. But if we do open up lots A, B, and C now, that pretty much solves that problem. So with much discussion here in the next couple of days with the Disaster Council, we will absolutely consider that and consider that a very viable solution there at the beach parking lot.
Yeah, that'd be greatly appreciated. In doing my duties for Beacon, I watched the sand movement, and what I noticed this afternoon, well, I've noticed that the sand is on the move at the first flags at the corner of Surfside and Market Street, but I noticed that the sand has moved so much, it upended some of the markers that you buried. So I just noticed that this afternoon, like 3 or 4 of them were, I don't even know how to say it, but they were no longer buried. They were on their side and you could see the base. And so it's quite interesting to watch how the sand is moving rather quickly because the waves have been pretty big. So I just wanted to mention that. Thank you.
That's a good observation. What happened with that is this past weekend, we didn't take the delineators all the way down towards Market for that very reason. But one of our officers thought, since it was a heavily populated and used area, that he would take 15 to 20 additional delineators and simply plop them on the sand. And today they pretty much got toppled over because they didn't get properly buried, and we were worried about the actual, like you said, sand line changing. And so officers are actually out there right now as we speak, recovering those delineators and taking them off the beach.
Any more questions for Chief Salinas? I just have a couple of questions on the horses. I saw some horses being unloaded near one of the beach parking lots. Are horses allowed on our beach? Do you know anything about that?
I've seen horses on the beach. I've never seen them unloaded in any one of our beach lots. I don't think we would allow that. I do know there are some horses that come from the Oxnard, Ormond Beach area, some of the private property over there, and they head this way. That's all I've got right now in terms of horses on our beach.
Okay. And I know that City of Ventura opened up their pier last weekend. Have we learned anything about social distancing on piers from them?
We have not been out there, and that's actually a very good strategy, is for us to go out there and see if they've put into place any social distancing guidelines on their reopening.
I did ask one of my counterparts on their city council about their social distancing plan, and I didn't get a response. And I think our city manager had a similar experience. Not sure what they have in place, but maybe by now, with the weekend now passed, they've instituted some procedures. It would be worth asking, I think.
Okay.
Yeah. And then I wanted to share with you that I'm actually putting together a social distancing plan for my church, and the requirements, since you were talking earlier about worship services, the requirements in order to reopen are quite extensive for worship service. And you actually have to limit your attendance to 25% of the building's capacity so that you can ensure that people are 6 feet apart. And then there's also all these other sanitation requirements and testing people at the door. So there's a lot of considerations. The guidelines are available on BC Reopens, and you can go down the list of businesses and find the worship services reopening plans and guidelines. So if you're interested in what they have to do to reopen, and want to compare it to community senior exercise class, you might want to look at that and get a flavor for what's being required. And I feel for you, Councilman Rollins, because I have my outdoor yoga class, which has not been able to meet since this has started. And they are outdoors. They can practice social distancing, but we've been told that because it represents a gathering, they are still not allowed to conduct yoga classes. Now, they are getting a little creative and doing groups less than 10 outdoors. And so far that seems to be working, but that class normally has 40 to 50 people in it 3 days a week. So it's been really hard to get permission to do a full-on class. And by the way, she is doing her yoga classes on Zoom. It's not the same, but it's better than nothing.
I know my wife has actually taped all the different songs, and I see her in the family room doing the exercises and they've had Zoom meetings just to kind of communicate with each other. So I think it's something very indicative that we want to try to be prudent and be safe, but be creative and figure out how we can do this.
Yeah. The guidelines are difficult, especially for our churches. You can't sing. You can't share the blessing. There's so many things that you go to church for, and you're not able to do that under COVID-19. Yes, Councilman Gama.
I noticed a gym was open and people were in there working out. Is that allowed?
Right now, gyms are not an authorized business to be opened. People have filed a few complaints with the County of Ventura in regards to that gym. The battle that we currently have right now are there's several other gyms in the county that are currently open. And so we're trying to get an answer from the county in regards to this restriction.
I was ready to go join up.
Okay.
You need it.
All right. Well, thank you very much, Chief Salinas. When are we going to talk about the civil unrest situation? How is that impacting your personnel, your staff? And can you tell us a little bit? I mean, it's coming right at the heels of 2 months of COVID. It's just horrible what's happening in some of our major cities. Can you tell us a little bit about what our involvement is?
Excuse me, Mayor
Yes.
Hernandez, this is the Deputy City Attorney. That item is actually not on the agenda. So I believe Chief Salinas can discuss it so long as it relates to the COVID-19 update. General communications regarding protests and civil unrest are not on the agenda.
Thank you.
So it had definitely put a strain on us dealing with 2 state emergencies at the same time. I will provide council with an update at the next meeting. I will also continue to update them via email in regards to our response, but it has been very challenging, especially with our staffing. And there are events scheduled in this county in the coming days, which will even provide a greater challenge to our staffing here in Hueneme as we try to assist our other cities.
Okay, thank you for that. All right, very good. Thank you again, Chief Salinas. That was excellent presentation, very informative for all of us. We're still learning as we go along here. I want to move now to the consent calendar agenda, and I will read the titles of each of the items, and I also have a public comment on item 5. Item number 3 is approved minutes of the City Council for the regular meeting of May 18th, 2020. The recommendation is to approve the minutes. Item number 4 is receive and file the finance cash disbursements for May 9th, 2020 through May 22, 2020. And the recommendation is to receive and file the disbursements. And then item number 5 is a professional services contract with Beyond Gravity Media during COVID-19 emergency. And the recommendation is to authorize the city manager to award a sole source contract per municipal code section 2564C to Beyond Gravity Media Services for communication management during a local emergency not to exceed $60,000. Madam Clerk, can you advise me, is this the appropriate time to read the public comment on item 5?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. This public comment is from Ricardo Holden to Christy Kemper. Subject is public comment number 2, dated June 1st, 2020, 4:59 p.m. Not sure if we are allowed 2 comments. I object to spending $60,000 on media services. I reviewed what was already provided and do not think it is worth the $20,000 that was contracted. I would also like to know if David Doctor received any subcontractor funds for the footage he may have provided for the media projects. If so, I think this is a conflict of interest as he is dating the mayor. Again, I cannot respond to that, but I would like to direct the questions to our city manager for handling. Are you there, Mr. City Manager?
Yes, the funds associated with Beyond Gravity are really associated with emergency management and was initiated as a response to our public service requirements, website for the Port Hueneme emergency public communications. And
Sorry, we can't hear. I can't.
And these funds are potentially recoverable in regards to recovery reimbursements from FEMA and other agencies that are supporting our efforts in this emergency.
Brick, your volume is very low.
Rick, can you turn your volume up? Do you need him to repeat his statement? Councilman Gama, were you able to capture that, or do you? Oh, you're on mute, Councilman Gama.
I'll do another.
I had a hard time following it.
Let me give one.
Do you want? Yeah.
Communications check. How do we hear now?
You're still a little low.
Speak up.
Okay. Do you want to try that again, Mr. Connors?
One more time. How do we hear?
It's still low.
Chief Salinas has the details. I'll refer to him for
Okay.
the information.
Okay. Thank you.
So
somebody will get back to him on his questions.
So I can comment on a couple of those points.
Okay.
First and foremost, David Doctor is not involved in any way in any of what we are doing here in our emergency management or what services Beyond Gravity Media is providing for us, which is in essence, we have contracted with Scott Madelon, who owns Beyond Gravity Media Services. The original contract was for only $20,000 because we felt that the current emergency would only last a couple of months. It has taken us way beyond that, and we are still in need of his services. The $60,000 was simply put there as a ceiling. We don't expect to use all of those funds, as we actually expect to fill the position for PIO/emergency manager in the next month. The other comment in regards to the $20,000 and not having spent that properly, I'd like to remind everyone what Beyond Gravity Media or Scott Madelon has done for us over the last 3 months, as I did not delineate it in the staff report and simply summarized it, but I'll take this opportunity to remind everyone what has been accomplished in the last 2.5 months. We created an emergency website within 2 days, porthuenemeemergency.com. That is a website that we customized just for our community, and no other community has done such a thing, not counting the county of Ventura, that it specifically addresses this emergency. He has created over 30 videos of content for our city, whether it be for me or the mayor or any message that we have needed to get out. He is responsible for overseeing our social media content. He's built a widget to integrate our COVID numbers on our website. He monitors VC emergency. He has helped Sergeant Starna in the EOC. He has set up security cameras at our pier for us. The Zoom presentations you see now, that was thanks to his assistance with our IT manager, Aaron, for putting that together. He has consulted with Public Works on the security camera project at Miranda Park. He has assisted us with all of our signage in the city, whether it be at the beach or Miranda Park or along Channel Islands. He participates in weekly calls with our county PIOs. I mean, the list goes on. So we have gotten a definite value out of Scott and his company and all that he does. If you type in Port Hueneme Emergency right now into Google, our website is the first to pop up. And if anyone knows anything about the internet, that is an incredible feat within 2 months to be on top of the Google search with those keywords. And so we believe we have accomplished quite a bit thanks to the assistance of Beyond Gravity Media.
Yeah, I have to agree that he has helped us put on a professional face during this COVID, and I am comforted to know that he'll be there through the riot situation as well. Many cities did not have that capability in the first month of COVID, and he just really made our city look professional and demonstrated that we were communicating with our community. And it was, I think, a very good decision on Chief Salinas's part to bring him on board. Councilman Goma?
Maybe I missed this, but I don't recall being informed of an emergency website. And I'm certainly going to go take a look at it. But yeah, we need to promote it and get people looking at it. But I feel, I don't know, did I miss that notification?
I think maybe you've seen it, and maybe you didn't know you were looking at it, because we put it out on almost all the literature. It's also on the council agenda.
Port Hueneme Emergency has been posted on nearly every single social media posting, every press release, all the signs at the beach. We've had that out since March 20th. So I believe the public uses it. We have over 5,500 people that have visited just that site in the last 30 days. So people are actually using it.
Okay. Councilman Rollins, did you have something?
It's on item number 4 and the financial disbursements. And the only thing that I would like to request, I don't know, is maybe some kind of an update. I noticed that one of the expenses we've had is from NG, which was an approved expense. But over the last quarter, we've spent basically big bucks on the different things that NG has done. And I wanted to know whether or not that work has been on budget. Have we gone under budget, over budget, and what has been done to this date? Because it was a fairly substantial amount of money that's being spent on that, which again, we approved as far as the total project. I think it was like 49,000 or something.
Yeah, I don't know. That's something we can discuss now or expect an answer to. Are you looking for something down the road in the next follow-up meeting?
Perhaps, unless the finance director wanted to comment on it, but otherwise, no, because
I think as a point of order, the item we're talking about is the receive and file of the finance cash disbursements. And
right.
Getting into a discussion on the NG project might be too much of a long shot.
Okay. I guess I'll bring it up in my comments at the end, because I know we've spent a lot of money.
Yeah.
I just
Kevin?
wanted to get an update on all the money that we've spent.
Kevin, did you want to weigh in on that? Our city attorney?
My idea is that the cash disbursements are simply authorization of expenditures and whatnot, not exactly line item discussions for things like the NG product. The other thing that I would suggest is that we've now had discussion on at least one and now two of the consent calendar items. I would want those pulled and addressed separately.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
I would like to request that, I thought we were on the consent calendar, and
yeah, we still have to approve the consent calendar.
Okay, so I have a few questions with the transactions. So is it the appropriate time to ask those questions?
Oh, you'd need to pull that item for discussion?
Okay, I think we should pull it for discussion.
Pull item 4. Okay. Any other items you want to discuss?
No, ma'am. Okay,
so let's go ahead then, and I'll need a motion to approve item 3 and 5.
I'd like to move we approve item 3 and 5 and hold 4 for discussion.
Second.
We have a motion from Councilman Berg and a second from
Gama.
Councilman Gama.
Oh, Gama.
Okay. Madam Clerk, can you take a roll call vote, please?
Absolutely. Councilmember Burke?
Yes.
Councilmember Gama?
Yes.
Councilmember Rollins?
Yes.
Mayor Hernandez?
Yes.
And Mayor Pro Tem Munoz-Schnapp is absent for the record.
Okay, very good. Okay, let's go then to the receive and file the finance cash disbursements for May 9th, 2020 through May 22nd, 2020. Councilman Gama, you want to proceed with your question?
Yeah. So I remember about a year ago, we had a discussion about details, and I think at the time we asked for more details on this report, and I'm not sure if we ever got that. But as I went through the report, and I'll just throw out a few names, Miller Via Consulting. So on the report, it shows 2 entries, April 20 services, and it has a date, and then it has a number. I guess that's the check number or register number. And so it says 120,933, but it's listed twice. And then in the amount column, it shows $8,330 twice. So, and then same thing with Area Consulting. On that one, it's check number, I guess, 120,970. It's listed twice, and there's 2 amounts of $5,000. So just from, and then there's I think there's another one, but you get my point. So from a layman's vantage point, it looks like we're paying people twice. And I'm wondering why it does that.
Do we have our finance director online who can answer that? Mr. McDonald, are you here?
Yeah, can you hear me okay?
Yes, thank you.
Yeah, I saw the Milner Via consulting one that Councilmember Gama was referring to. I would have to look at the detail, but I would guess that check number amount is that $8,330 is appears twice because it's charged equally between two lines. I think these are separate GL lines. So it's not a duplicate transaction. It's just the same amount as being distributed.
Okay,
Now,
well,
I didn't see the ARIA Consulting one, but
well, yeah, there's probably 4 of them, but for
This is city manager. IRS invoices monthly at $5,000 per month. The invoices were, I guess, accumulated and paid in 1 month, so they would have shown multiple payments, but for separate invoice months. The Milner one is associated with our water agency support. It's split in 2. A part of that is again, kind of engineering service. The other one is other technical experiences, so that those bills are split in half as well. So they're legitimate invoice payments. They are paid to separate components of the invoice, but they are under the same agendized line item in their accounting system.
yeah, so I think those are the kind of details that, because I'm looking at the Milner one, it's like each payment says April 20 services, April 20 services. So I think what I hear you saying is it may have been for March and April services, or is it just April services for $16,000?
Well, it's probably likely that it's charged, portion of that is charged to, let's say, the water utility, and then the other portion could be charged to some other department.
Yeah, so I think those are the details that we talked about last year. Like it would help us to understand, because
Yeah,
I see multiple invoices for, like, say, Karis Navigating, and they're all different amounts for April.
Those are definitely different funds and project codes that are on there when they're entered, and this report puts each one on its own line. So if there's a project code related to one item, it could report it separately. This is kind of my dissatisfaction with the reporting that's available through this system. But I mean, nothing like that's changed. The only changes we had was in regards to the credit cards. They changed the description category and put, a standard legend, like PW for public works or FM for facilities maintenance, so that we would be able to identify from that charge where it's coming from.
Councilman, are you done, Councilman Gama? Do you have anything more? Okay, Councilman Rollins?
Okay, maybe just the money that's being spent, that was spent for Lauterbach and Associates. Can you just update me on what that is? It was for 7,500 approximately. Lauterbach and Associates, it says architectural work.
Ken, if I may, that Councilman Rollins, that was for ADA consulting that Lauterbach and Associates have been hired to do for the industrial building, which the Housing Authority will be moving into.
Okay, and then is there a way to give me a brief description as to the roof replacement that cost us through NG $949,000? Or maybe a whole report should be on that, because I think the last 3 items totaled over $1 million. Do you have any idea what that's?
Mr. City Manager, do you want to address that? How would you like to address that? Is that something we?
These are extreme minutia details. The NG project was paid in 3 invoices totaling somewhere around the neighborhood of 3.7. These are payments against that invoice. They do not account for over or under execution, work scope increase or anything like that. They are part of a package. The the execution on that contract, the excess work through either findings or discovery after they pulled roof off and examine other areas of structure and support will be added or subtracted depending on the particular area and reconciled in the future. Those represent the pure approved invoices that were initially presented to council.
And approved by council.
Okay.
All right, Councilman Berg.
Thank you very much, Mayor Hernandez. I'm now more confused than ever after listening to Mr. McDonald explain these checks. I heard him say that we owed Milner via Consulting $16,660, and we gave them 2 checks for half the amount and adds up to $16,660. Is that what we did?
No, the total, I believe the total check amount was $16,660. The $83.30 was charged into 2 different account lines, just like the NG one that we were just referring to. It's the same check number, different amounts for each one. So those are charged to different project numbers or project codes or accounting lines.
Okay, I think maybe I confused you now with my question, because that's exactly what I thought I said. We owed $16,660. We paid them in 2 payments there, 2 checks that add up to $16,660. Is that correct?
Well, the check number was
You
the
said
same.
no.
No, it was 1 check.
Then
If
why
you
is
look-
it put twice?
Because each line is charged to a separate GL number.
Okay.
And so,
All right. Thank you.
so if there was
Thank
more,
you. Thank you. The more you talk, the more I get confused. I liked your answer. Thank you.
Okay, let's move on.
One more.
Okay, one
Wait.
more, Councilman Gama.
Would it not be possible to give little detail, like let's just say half of it went for HVAC, half of it went for plumbing? Could we not code it like April 20 services plumbing, April 20 services roof? That way, those are the details that we talked about a year ago that were missing, because then we would know, we would look at it and go, oh, is this a mistake or is this just, so just a couple letters of detail might help us. Sorry to drag this on.
I hear what everybody's saying. It just seems like there needs to be another column which will either just provides a little bit more detail on what the item was for, or even show the account number, because there's no way that we can tell from this disbursement log that those 2 items, those 2 budget numbers, the 8,330 is coming from a separate account. So
Exactly.
yeah,
But it's all right.
okay. All right. So thank you. Okay, anything else on disbursement? Yes, Councilman.
Can I
Berg.
make a motion that we approve item number 4 on the
Yes,
consent
please.
calendar?
Thank you. And do we have a second on that?
Second.
Okay.
Thank you, Steve.
All right. I have a motion and a second. And Madam Clerk, will you take a roll call vote, please?
Councilmember Berg,
Yes.
Councilmember Gama,
Yes.
Councilmember Rollins,
Yes.
Mayor Hernandez,
Yes.
and Mayor Pro Tem Munoz-Schnapp is absent for the record. Motion passes.
Okay. I am now going to move to call to order the joint session of the Port Hueneme City Council and the Port Hueneme Successor Agency. Okay, so I need to ask our Madam Clerk to please take the roll for Successor Agency meeting.
Correct. Member Berg,
Here.
Member Gama,
Still here.
Member Rollins,
Here.
Vice Chair Munoz-Schnapp is absent for the record, and Chair Hernandez.
Here. Okay, so the first roll call was for the City Council and the second roll call is for the Successor Agency. And this pertains to what's on the agenda is item 6, Market Street property. It is requesting that the City Council authorize the purchase of Market Street property. The recommendation is adopt a resolution of the City Council of the City of Port Hueneme, California, authorizing the execution of a purchase sale agreement regarding the successor agency sale of a property located at 100 Panoma Street, Port Hueneme, California, 93041, to the city, finding that such authorization is exempt from environmental review under the California Environmental Quality Act and taking related actions. May I have a motion and a second for approval? Or do we have a presentation on this before we take a motion? No presentation?
There is
No.
no presentation.
Okay,
This is listed under consent calendar for the joint meeting.
okay. Oh, I see that now. Okay, so I need a motion and a second for city council approval.
Make a motion to approve the resolution.
Second.
Okay, I need a roll call vote.
Okay, for the city council roll call vote, Councilmember Gama,
Yes.
Councilmember Rollins,
Yes.
Councilmember Berg,
I'm a little unsure of this vote because I don't know if we have a viable game plan for this property, but I'll vote yes.
I can have Kevin, our deputy city attorney kind of clarify. I believe you're just approving a resolution that gives the authority to first
Purchase.
sector authority.
Right.
Okay. Okay, so you're a yes, sir. Thank you. Mayor Hernandez
Yes.
and Mayor Pro Tem Munoz-Schnapp is absent for the record.
Now we'll move to the successor agency portion of the agenda, authorizing the purchase of Market Street property. The recommendation is to adopt a resolution of the successor agency of the City of Port Hueneme, California, authorizing the execution of purchase sale agreement regarding the successor agency sale of a property located at 100 Panoma Street, Port Hueneme, California, 93041, to the city, finding that such authorization is exempt from environmental review under the California Environmental Quality Act and taking related actions. I should have had us all change hats at that point. The successor agency roll call vote for consent item number 6. I'll need a motion and a second.
At this point,
We are now performing as the successor agency. So this is a joint meeting of the city council and the successor agency. So we performed our city council duties. Now we had to change hats and now we're acting as a successor agency. Basically, we have the same motion before us.
So moved.
Thank you. Second?
do we list at this time what we are purchasing the property for the public, or is this something that we don't do at this time?
Mr. Spalding, do you want to address that?
Sure. What this transaction really is this council approved the execution of a purchase and sale agreement on March 2nd. This is the same transaction. The major difference here is observing certain formalities so that we can move this property through escrow, which include allowing and authorizing the city manager to execute all documents and whatnot necessary for the escrow to close. So this transaction really has not changed in any way since March 2nd, and the city's purchase price of this property remains $1,821,000.
Okay.
Okay, so I have a motion. I need a second.
I'll second.
Okay, thank you, Councilman Rollins. And Madam Clerk, may we have a roll call vote, please?
Sure, this roll call vote would be for the successor agency. Member Gama,
Aye.
Member Rollins,
Yes.
Member Berg,
Yes.
Chair Hernandez,
Yes.
and Vice Chair Munoz-Schnapp is absent for the record. Motion passes.
Okay, we're still in the successor agency meeting. Do agency members have any reports, comments, and requests for future agenda items? Councilman Berg? Did you have anything for the future? Okay, no.
Thank you.
Okay. All right, well, if not, I'll go ahead and adjourn the successor agency meeting and reconvene the council meeting. The successor agency will adjourn to the next meeting with a date yet to be determined. We are now in the council, our council meeting, our regular meeting, and we are moving on to a public hearing under item 7, which is a plan development, PHPD-875, a major modification to PHPD 303, Anacapa View Beach Homes regarding site architectural and landscape improvements at 165 Sea Spray Way. The hearing is now open at 8:14 p.m. Do any members of the council have any conflicts to disclose? I think Mayor Pro Tem was the only one, and she's not here. Madam Clerk, do you have proof of publication as required by law?
Yes, ma'am, I do.
Do we have a complete file of reports and exhibits?
Yes, we do.
And will staff please present the report? I believe we have Tony Stewart, Director of our Community Development Department, with us.
Yes, we do. Good evening, Mayor, members of the council. Thank you. So this is a request by the Anacapa View Beach Homes HOA to do several improvements throughout their development, both the site, landscaping, and also the architecture. Specifically, what they're asking for is to install a new slumpstone block walls behind several of the residences along Whitecap Court. By the way, could we have the next slide, please? Just waiting for that next slide. There we go. To allow the removal of chimney crowns on the units which have had the remainder of their chimney structures previously removed. To allow for the expansion of front balconies where the front yard setback is greater than 15 feet in depth. Allow for the installation of rooftop access ladders, provide a series of colored and materials options for the unit's exteriors, provide a new interior street tree palette, and provide a revised tree palette for the slope-facing Seaview Street. Staff has been working with the Homeowners Association for a couple years on getting all of these items to you this evening. So the next slide, please. This just shows you an overview of the location of the development there at Market and Seaview Streets, just below the Anacapa View condos. Both of those developments were part of the original Plan Development 303, but were developed in separate phases, with the Anacapa View Beach Homes being basically detached townhome type units.
Tony,
Next slide,
can you
please.
point out Whitecap Lane, please?
Sure. Whitecap is going to be the street to the furthest right there, where the jagged line is, basically. That's Whitecap along there, basically below the hill that supports the condos. So next slide, please. And this slide also, I've got a series of basically site plans to show you the different modifications, but this particular one shows you where the slumpstone walls are proposed to replace existing failing wood fences. This would also enable some of the property owners along that street who have wood side yard fencing to install the slumpstone block walls as well. Next slide, please. With regard to the street tree palette, right now the development, if you're familiar with it, has every unit in between their driveways has a little landscaped area and a little manicured ficus tree in it. The problem is these ficus trees are 40 years old, and at this point, even though they're not big trees, they have big root systems, and they're starting to damage the surrounding driveways and walkways. So the applicant, the HOA, is proposing to replace the ficus trees with a series of different types of small scale trees listed here, such as Marina strawberry, yew pines, crepe myrtles, that will provide a variety along the streetscape, but also basically also provide trees that don't have damaging root systems as they mature. Next slide, please. And then along Seaview Street, those of you who are familiar with it, several trees have been removed over the years and not replaced. So the applicant at this point is seeking to replace those trees, and the city is also seeking to have those trees replaced before it becomes a code enforcement issue. Right now, the tree palette for that slope is pretty monotonous, with just the fescue grass as well as the sycamore, pine, and eucalyptus trees. And the pine in particular have been very messy. The eucalyptus trees have a tendency to fail, and the sycamore trees are also kind of messy and not doing too well. So what the applicant's asking to do is maintain the existing trees, but replace the trees that are missing with a series of smaller scale trees that will also provide some color to this kind of tone-on-tone green landscape along there. And so the new tree palette would consist of crepe myrtles, magnolias, and New Zealand Christmas trees, which are pretty prevalent around the city as kind of a newer tree being planted by HOAs up in the Mandalay Center and whatnot. Next slide, please. So with regard to the exterior modifications, for those of you who are familiar with this development, these units are all fairly uniform in design right now. They're all fairly boxy. They were developed back in the early 70s. Many of them were developed with chimneys right in the middle of the sliding glass area, which potentially block views of the ocean. So a few years ago, based on several requests, the former community development director processed a modification to allow the chimneys to be removed, but required that the chimney caps, which are the parts that are above the roof line, be maintained, basically to provide some vertical articulation to the units. However, over the years, these structures are now failing and or potentially failing. They're causing roof leaks and whatnot. They're starting to sag, and so frankly, they do need to be removed. And staff at this time fully supports the removal of these chimney caps. Another thing that the applicant is asking to do is provide rooftop access ladders. These would be for maintenance of the rooftops, but would not be allowed. Basically, they would not be used for turning the rooftops into decks and whatnot, because we don't have any balcony railings around the rooftops, nor are any being proposed. There are a few, probably just a handful of units in this plan development that have setbacks that are greater than 15 feet in the front. Plan developments are allowed to have 15-foot instead of 20-foot setbacks. And so some of the applicant or some of the homeowners are asking to extend their balconies out to that 15-foot setback line. And at the same time, the HOA would also like to see greater variety in all of the exteriors of the units out there. And this is one of the ways that would also, and with the removal of the chimney caps, we still see articulation. And so what the applicant is proposing to do is allow for a variety of balcony railings, being either wrought iron with posts, Southern Cross, which is what's there on the bottom of the screen, steel cable with the horizontal posts, as well as glass. And the idea here, along with the other modifications I'll be discussing, is that with HOA approval, the property owners would be able to make these modifications without having to come back to staff every time for an approval other than a building permit. Next slide, please. And so along with these balcony modifications, the HOA is also asking permission to provide new veneers on these units if the homeowners so choose. And those would consist of what they call hardy board, which is kind of a fiber cement board panel. It's very weatherproof and a lot more structurally sound, especially in this kind of climate, than say wood clapboard. But also natural wood siding, as well as smooth Santa Barbara stucco. Now, if the homeowner didn't want to pay for any of these, they could simply just repaint their units. Also keep in mind, with past modification, we've already previously allowed a variety of stone veneers, so that would also be an option. Next slide, please. And then finally, as part of the exterior modifications, the HOA would like to see a new series of colors. And so they're proposing 4 different paint schemes. And as you can see here, a couple of those schemes have quite a few different trim colors that the homeowners can choose from. So what it would be a standard base color, one of the 4 base colors, and then several different trims they could pick and choose from. There's a lot of variety here already. So in order to keep a little bit of a semblance, the HOA would also not allow somebody to say pick scheme base color number 1 and then trim color from number 3. So they do want to keep some kind of order in the color schemes. But at the same time, all of these improvements are going to allow the property owners quite a bit of variety to upgrade and update the exterior of their units out there at Anacapa View Beach Homes. And so with that, because there are no actual modifications to the site layout, to the footprints of the units, there are no expansion of uses or whatnot, the project is exempt from CEQA per section 15301. Next slide and following slide after that. Skipped one more. And so with this, is recommended that the City Council open the public hearing to take testimonial and documentary evidence, then close the public hearing and consider the evidence. After considering the evidence, adopt a resolution of the City Council of the City of Port Hueneme granting approval of Plan Development Permit number PHPD 875 and take such additional related action as may be desirable. And I'm now available for any questions. And also Tom Johnson, representing the Homeowners Association, is online as well, should you have any questions or comments for him. Thank you.
Mayor, your microphone's on mute.
Okay, Councilman Rollins, you have a question for staff?
On the paint palette, is there some kind of a succession, or could 5 homes decide to paint the exact same way?
Technically, they could choose to paint the exact same way. I'm not sure if they would. And of course, keep in mind that there are also different balcony railing designs, as well as siding, exterior siding designs that they can choose from as well. So hopefully there'll still be quite a bit of variety on that, and we won't be seeing more than 1 or 2 units with the same color scheme and material scheme.
Of all these improvements, are any of them are they all optional, or are some of them mandatory?
These, with the exception of the street trees and the slope planting, because that's like I said, becoming a code compliance issue. The rest of these are all optional. So like I said, if a homeowner just wants to paint, that's all they need to do. They don't need to put siding on. They don't have to put new balcony railings and whatnot. They don't even have to modify their chimney cap, but we're definitely giving them the opportunity, which has been a very popular request.
And finally, regarding the tree palette, the trees that are going to be allowed to stay in, is there going to be an easy process to remove them at a later time? I know that the city prides themselves on having a good palette of treescape, and the ones that are remaining, can they automatically replace those as they wither and die?
Hopefully they won't be withering and dying, but they would need to come to the city for a tree removal permit to remove the slope trees. The trees within the interior of the project, all the little ficus trees, that'll all be handled under this particular approval right now, so they won't need to come back and see the city for future approvals for those.
Okay. And this is just a side note. I know one of the trees that you mentioned was a crepe myrtle. Is that one that grows on the coast very well?
Crepe myrtles kind of grow almost anywhere. So
okay.
Yeah, they have some use here as well.
Okay, yeah, I thought they required a lot more heat, but a little side note.
Okay, any more questions for Director Stewart? Yes, Councilman Berg.
Thank you very much, Mayor Hernandez. First of all, Mr. Johnson, I congratulate you. This looks like some real upgrades, and I think it'll enhance your property and your values. And I assume you probably went through blood, sweat, and tears to get everybody to agree to all these changes.
This was 2 years in the making.
2 years.
We've invested well over $10,000 in mock-ups and drawings and hiring the contractor, putting it to a board vote, putting it through the whole entire community vote. So yeah, it's been a lengthy process, but it's going to provide huge value to this community with the look and feel and property values, permitting fees, increased property taxes down the road.
Certainly looks that way to me. So yeah, this looks like a real, like I said, enhancement to the property. Nice report.
Thank you, Councilman Burke. Anybody else have any comments? Okay, do we have any public comments? Anybody wanting else to address the council on this matter? Christy, do we have any public comments on this?
No, no public comments were received.
Okay, thank you. Seeing none, without objection, we'll close the public hearing, the time being 8:30 p.m. We have before us a recommendation to open the public hearing, to take testimonial and documentary evidence, and to close the public hearing and consider the evidence. And after considering the evidence, adopt a resolution of the City Council of the City of Port Hueneme granting approval of planned development permit number PHPD-875 Anacapa View Beach Homes Homeowners Association, and for take such additional related action that may be desirable. May I have a motion and a second?
I'd like to move approval.
Councilman Berg and Councilman Rollins, thank you. And may we have a roll call vote?
Councilmember Burke,
Yes.
Councilmember Rollins,
Yes.
Councilmember Gama,
Yes.
Mayor Hernandez,
Yes.
and Mayor Pro Tem Munoz-Schnapp is absent for the record. Motion passes.
Thank you. Okay, now Mayor Pro Tem Munoz-Schnapp, if you are still wanting to come back to the meeting, you are allowed now to come back. I don't know if she's going to be able to return, so we'll just go ahead and continue. We are now on business items, and we are under City Manager's Department, item number 8. Again, this item was pulled and no action was taken. We did have, however, letters of support and opposition received from the following individuals, and I will read those now. Letters of support came from John Zaragoza, 2, Philip and Kathy Thomason, 3, Lonnie Lisman, 4, Juliet Rodriguez, 5, Carl Morehouse, 6, Brian McDonald, 7, Charlotte Craven, 8, Murray Rosenbluth, 9, Catherine Penpraise, and 10, Cheryl Malone. So there were 10 letters of support, 1 letter of opposition from Mr. Tom Figg. And then I have 3 public comments to read on this item. And I do read these, right? Even though we've pulled the item?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So item number, public comment number 1 is from from Tom Figg to Mayor and City Council regarding John Sharkey recognition, agenda item number 8. Make sure I have the right one here. I recently learned that the matter of honoring former council member Jonathan Sharkey is on the City Council agenda for June 1st, 2020. A similar request for rededicating the Hueneme Pier was presented to the council in April last year. Then has now, I oppose the proposal in my, let me start again, sorry, I'm going too fast. Then has now, I oppose the proposal. In my humble opinion, there are many individuals who are far more worthy of the honor. The length of holding elective office should not overshadow the quality of service provided or the selfless contributions made outside of the council dais. Self-proclaimed accomplishments should be given no more or less consideration than dishonorable acts that discredit the community. Indeed, Mr. Sharkey's legacy includes slanderous accusations against political reveals, Brown Act violations for unlawful meetings, and a $3,000 fine by the Fair Political Practices Commission for conflicts of interest. It's particularly ironic that the FPPC fine is linked to Hueneme Beach, the very venue for which the council is asked to honor Mr. Sharkey. In summary, I urge the City Council to take a broader view of how and to whom acclamations are bestowed upon our community leaders, past, present, and future, without fully vetting proposals of this sort. It runs contrary to the precepts of government transparency and community engagement. Mayor Pro Tem Sylvia Munoz Schnapp opened Pandora's box with her peer rededication proposal in 2019, and now the council needs to bring closure. Here are some suggestions. Direct staff to assign the matter for review and recommendations by the Community Advisory Commission. Task CAC to formulate a process by which to nominate individuals and organizations with qualifying criteria by which to evaluate candidates. Develop guidelines for the manner by which to recognize elected officials, community leaders, civic organizations, and citizen advocates. And I, devise appointment and removal procedures for city volunteers and protocols for their conduct. Final recommendation or suggestion is work in cooperation with the Oxnard Harbor District in using community enhancement funds to finance commemorative declarations. I wish the council good luck in bringing this matter to a reasoned outcome. There are many individuals and organizations within this community that deserve recognition. For the time being, I suggest that the city council focus on process rather than the merits of a specific individual. I have faith in your judgment and look forward to the solution you craft. The next comment is from Jeffrey Scarberry, dated May 31st, 2020, 1:44 p.m. to council webmail, CCing Brad Connors. It reads, I am not in favor of renaming any part of Hueneme Beach Park after any individual. Possibly something at City Hall, like the public square area in front, would be a more appropriate place for a plaque honoring Mr. Sharkey. And the third public comment comes from David Scribner, sent Sunday, May 31st, 2020 at 10:01 a.m. to Madam Mayor Pro Tem Sylvia Munoz Schnapp and City Manager. I guess this went to all City Council members. Subject Sharkey. Hi, Mr. Connors. As you may recall, last year Council Member Munoz attempted to name the pier after John Sharkey. She convinced the former City Manager to slip it into the agenda without any public input. Word got out and there was a huge public outcry. The night of the council meeting, the room was packed with people who were angry enough to get off their couches and come to the meeting. I don't remember the ratio of positive to negative emails regarding the plan, but it was something like 10 or 20 against it. Due to the public anger over this, the proposal was pulled from the agenda. The VC Star covered the whole fiasco and there was widespread agreement that it was a very unpopular idea. Now, similar proposal is back. To be clear, the citizens of Port Hueneme have made their thoughts clear. This latest attempt is taking place under the cover of COVID-19 stay-at-home orders. There will not be anyone showing up at the council meeting to protest because they can't participate in person. I suspect that the Star will cover this again, and the optics of trying to slip this through when the public is barred from speaking out in real time is going to be problematic. I strongly recommend that the council pull this item from the agenda. If the council wants to start naming public property after themselves, they should consult the public first. Given the outpouring of displeasure after the first Sharkey incident, I think that's a typo, it should say the first Sharkey incident, I believe that the chances of gaining public support for his new attempt are close to zero. Okay, I guess I'm just going to move on to the next item, which is item 9, and that's a letter of support for Ormond Beach, and I'd like to ask staff to present the report.
Yes, Madam Mayor, we received a request from the California State Coastal Conservancy to support a grant request that would be directed towards Ormond Beach and Lagoon in particular, and their beach cleanup arena. We committed in this letter to do what we normally do in terms of supporting beach cleanup volunteer operations and our own operations within the confines of our city up into the line of adjacency with Oxnard. And then we also committed to support through reimbursable costs and staging with the anticipation of reimbursable funding from either agencies or the grant funds to support any operations outside of our area responsibility and coordinate that obviously with those agencies. That letter specifically states that there will be matching funding and the hope that the reimbursable for our own efforts would also be refunded. And that concludes my report, pending your questions.
Okay. Any questions for Mr. Connors? Okay. The recommendation is to authorize the city manager to execute a letter of support for the California State Coastal Conservancy proposed Ormond Beach Wetlands Restoration Project. May I have a motion and a second?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, we have Councilman Gama making the motion, and it is seconded by Councilman Rollins. May I have a roll call vote, Madam Clerk?
Councilmember Gama,
Yes.
Councilmember Rollins,
Yes.
Councilmember Burke,
Yes.
Mayor Hernandez,
Yes.
and Mayor Pro Tem is absent for the record. Thank you.
Okay, we are now on item 10, annual assessment for assessment district number 87-1, assessment district number 91-1, and assessment district number 95-3. And we have Mr. Villafano here to present the report.
Good evening, council and staff. We have 3 assessment districts, and we have a lighting maintenance district, we have a parkway median district, and we have a drainage maintenance district. And these 3 districts, the total income from these districts, and they're assessed on property to property parcels, is $486,373, and our total expenses are $643,123. So the lighting district, and we have approximately 50 lights, street lights. The revenue is $122,511, and our expenses are $161,120. We'll have a deficit of $38,609, and the difference will be picked up by the general fund. Then we have the Parkway and Median Assessment District, which has income of $178,813 and expenses of $196,255. We'll have a deficit of $17,442, and that'll be picked up by the general fund. Third, we have the Drainage Maintenance Assessment District, and we have revenue of $185,049 with expenses of $285,748. We'll have a deficit of $100,699, but we'll pick up that shortfall with the fund balance in the assessment district, the Drainage Maintenance Assessment District. We have a fund balance of $814,369. So we'll be able to cover that shortfall with that. And a little background on these assessment districts. They are grandfathered in. And this predated the 218 process. So we have shortfalls because of the cost of energy going up for the lighting. And then the median, Parkway and Median assessment districts, years ago, before I got here, there were some issues and the city was not paying for the water it was using for the median watering. So those I was 2 years ago, we were asked by the council to have a more thorough accounting. And as that, we ended up paying for the water. So that explains part of the shortfall plus rising costs. These are grandfathered assessments. So we cannot do a 218 process and raise them without the possibility of losing the money that we already get from these assessments. If we were going to try and raise these assessments, we would have to do what's referred to as an overlay and start a new assessment district, leave these in place and start a new assessment district. However, the cost of doing that would be more than just covering the shortfall with the general fund. And the deputy city attorney can fill in on the overlay and the fact that these are grandfathered in. Are there any questions?
Does council have any questions for Mr. Villafana? I have one question, and that is the $17,000 deficit is being taken out of the general fund. Do you expect that to continue into 21, 22, 22, 23? Are we going to continue to see a deficit?
Yes, you'll continue to see deficits in both the lighting assessment district and the Parkway and Median assessment district, because part of that money also is being used to pay for the probation crews that assist the city in weeding the medians. So yes, I do expect those costs to continue to, those two districts to continue to run deficits.
Mm-hmm. Okay. All right, I would like to entertain a motion in a second for Mr. Villafana's report. Let me go ahead and read the recommendation that City Council take the following actions: adopt a resolution of the City Council of the City of Port Hueneme, California, declaring its intention to order the levy and collection of assessments for the Lighting Maintenance Assessment District number 87-1 for the fiscal year beginning July 1, 2020 and ending June 30th, 2021, and adopt a resolution of the City Council of the City of Port Hueneme, California, declaring its intention to order the levy and collection of assessments for the Parkway and Medium Assessment District number 91-1 for the fiscal year beginning July 1, 2020 and ending June 30th, 2021. And 3, adopt a resolution of the City Council of the City of Port Hueneme, California, declaring its intention to order the levy and collection of assessments for the Port Hueneme Drainage Maintenance Assessment District number 95-3 for the fiscal year beginning July 1, 2020 and ending June 30th, 2021. May I have a motion and a second?
So moved.
Okay, thank you, Councilman Berg.
Second.
Thank you, Councilman Gama. And may we have a roll call vote, Madam Clerk?
Councilmember Burke,
Yes.
Councilmember Gama,
Yes.
Councilmember Rollins,
Yes.
Mayor Hernandez,
Yes.
and Mayor Pro Tem is absent.
Okay, moving on to item number 11, City Financial Update, third quarter 2019-2020 budget review. Mr. McDonald, are you prepared to report?
Yeah, we have the third quarter of the fiscal year's revenues and expenses to date, and I have a staff report there just kind of going over the general economic situation we're in.
Okay, can you give us some of the details of your staff report, please?
I don't really have a PowerPoint presentation prepared. I mean, I can discuss some of the things in there if nobody's read the report or address any questions that anybody has. I'm typically used to this being a consent item, receive and file.
Okay, but for our viewing public, can you maybe restate the purpose of this report?
Yeah, it gives our actual expenditures to date based on our budgeted amounts through March 31st of 2020.
Okay. Anybody have any more questions for Mr. McDonald?
Can you give us just a kind of a general overlay of where we're at? I mean, I know you went into quite detail, but for the public, are we doing okay? Do we have some problems that we have to face? Where are we?
We're in a pretty good situation. We haven't been forced with a lot of the same situations that other cities have, and I think we're kind of in a good situation. They're going to start seeing some declines, and there could be some decreases down the road, but we should finish out this year in fairly good shape compared to our past years.
Mr. City Manager, do you have anything to add to that?
Now, this is consistent with our last budget review in terms of revenue analysis relative to COVID virus, execution of capital projects, and the projections and forecasting through the remainder of this year and into next year, with a slight decrease in projected revenue, more so next year, 2021, than this year.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Connors, for that report. All right. I'll need a motion and a second on this, please.
Move acceptance.
Okay, thank you, thank you, Councilman Berg. Second?
Second.
All right, Councilman Gama, thank you. And we'll take a roll call vote, Madam Clerk.
Councilmember Burke,
Yes.
Councilmember Gama,
Yes.
Councilmember Rollins,
Yes.
Mayor Hernandez,
Yes,
and Mayor Pro Tem is absent. Motion passes.
thank you. Thank you, Mr. McDonald. Okay, we are now on item 12 of the City Port Community Benefit Fund Project Determination. You're up again, Mr. McDonald. Hopefully you have something to say this time.
Well, this one is another fun, complex deal. We tried to put this together and make it easier to understand, but we have the third page of the report has the summary of the amounts that were originally approved by council, and then to the left has the council approval dates, and then we have the amounts that we have through the first claim that we've gotten reimbursed for, and the second one that we have prepared and in front of you. And on the amount remaining, there's negative amounts for some that went a little bit over the council approval, some that are below, and we really kind of wanted to deal with the current amounts, but also either reapproving those previous amounts and approving any overages to kind of come up with the last column there, which was the revised updated amount approved. So I'm kind of thinking that's the number that we'll be kind of going through any new projects, re-budgeting some of these others. And then when we have that, we'll kind of have a completed list with maybe a new council approval date when we get to that.
And the number you're talking about is the 227,716.
Yeah, that's all those columns netted out together.
Okay.
Madam Mayor?
Yes, Mr. Connors?
Yeah, a process to reconcile the 5 years of 2015 agreement that created this fund, identified nearly $500,000 in funding into the account, and approximately $296,000 in city spending associated with the budget, somewhere around $426,000, either through under execution, over execution, or no execution on some of those approved projects. We needed to reconcile those differences with the Oxnard Harbor District so that we can be fully reimbursed to our general fund for those amounts. This staff report and this action reconciles that, but it also reprograms the unexecuted amount, which is significant, and the current year amount, which is significant, so that we have $227,000 worth of project work that we can apply to the year 5, this current year. We have identified 27 projects per the agreement requirements of two city council and city manager to present projects for consideration and then socializing with the Oxnard Harbor District. When they are satisfied with those projects, we will bring those projects back to council for approval.
Okay. Councilman Gama, you look ready to ask a question. Go ahead.
Yeah, I think the process needs to be reinvigorated. As I look at some of these projects, they've been laying in wait for like 3 years, maybe longer, and maybe they've gotten stale. And the other thing that I would hope that we could bring to this community benefit fund is to get the community involved in trying to make decisions or recommendations where we go from this. So I'm not, I think Mr. Connors indicated that these are pending projects and that we're gonna, maybe I misunderstood, but we're gonna get moving on all these projects, even though some of them may have outlived their time, like say, just picking on one, the establishment of Beach Advisory Commission. We started another commission, but we haven't done anything. I don't even, is it the advisory commission? So
Councilman Gama?
Yes.
That is 50% of the dues required to support Beacon, a entity that we briefed last time in council, in a council meeting. Many of these things were brought forward either because they were unexecuted. There are also several items that are very specific to donations to nonprofits with a specific restriction to support local businesses. Although the process has improved tremendously with the scoring and a prioritization, there is a little bit more sense of urgency so we can assist those struggling businesses with economic recovery.
So how much money is set aside for that particular thing?
For Beach Advisor Groups / Beacon, 9,000.
No, for the business one.
There are 2 donations, one to Reach for 10,000, one to the Ventura County Community Fund for 10,000.
I must be looking at the wrong page because I've never understood Beacon to be paid for by the Community Benefit Fund.
That is true. They never had. It was a project to be considered to socialize with the Oxnard Harbor District.
Okay.
How is it being now?
Beacon's funded through the general fund, I believe, but I'm sorry, but I'm probably now more confused. So we go down the list like beautification projects, landscape, public art, bus shelters. There was original budget of 35,000 and the remaining amount is 23,000. So what did we spend the 12,000 on? Do we know? Or was it just, I mean, I just don't know. And I, you know, some of these things have been out there.
That's why the balance has been reprogrammed to retire the project work that we don't have exact accounting for, and repurpose into the future and the future context that we are trying to support today.
Well, I'll give an example. One of the things that you know, I've brought up a number of times is like, you know, the beautification of like City Hall and the street medians. And it looks like we have money available of $23,000. I didn't need to ask that. We already have the money to be spent unless there was some specific projects that was being identified to.
Those particular projects are assigned to the general fund under the capital improvement. Some capital improvement were moved out of there because they were more community benefit oriented and lower in cost. And so that project list is a list that can be modified, improved, reduced as the council sees fit. It is just a recommendation to begin socializing with the Oxnard Harbor District. We have $227,000 to spend. And these projects exceed that amount so that we have the ability to reduce projects, eliminate some of those projects, or add some, replace some.
So that looks like it's going to be a pretty time-consuming act for us all to get involved to do. Is that something that you're hoping that we do tonight, or is that something that we just separate a separate time to kind of go over the existing projects to see what ones are still viable, what ones we need to add, ones we need to get rid of. I mean, it just seems like at this time, it'd be kind of difficult to go through each and every one of them to figure out where we're at.
There has been representatives of council and myself that assured, number one, that all those projects were viable and executable and presented cost estimates. The second part of it is we introduced a thorough and comprehensive scoring rubric to assign value to the community and also priority system. So that work has been done for council. It has the potential to be rescored and reprioritized, but that is presented for council consideration to move to socialize with the Oxnard Harbor District so that we can bring back and approve a final list to the council.
So where I'm trying to find the scoring part of it. Are these already been scored so that like the top 10 or the top 15, or maybe I don't see it.
They are listed in scoring precedent from top to bottom and from year 2020 through 2021. That scoring is reflected, and there's a line item from top to bottom.
Okay.
Mr. Connors, you presented us with that scoring model or approach that you used at an earlier meeting, correct? This is
yes, Mayor, that is correct.
Okay.
Is that attachment number 2?
That is correct.
Okay. And so that list goes from top priority to bottom of priority. Is that accurate?
It goes from top priority and score value to the community from top to bottom.
I think what might be helpful next time, or when we look at this again, is to have a legend so that we understand the initials that are in the far left-hand column. That might be helpful. Or yeah, have a cheat sheet attached to it so we can understand the scoring, or refresh our memories on how these lists were, how this list was put together. Okay, so
questions I have, and I know City Manager Connors, you've just come into this, and I think you've done a wonderful job of bringing all this information together, but it doesn't make it any easier because some of these things have been lying out there since 2015. But one of my questions is on the red columns, for example, in the middle of the page on, it says pedestrian crossing Market Street and Hueneme Road, PED activated. And there was original amount was $15,000 and it ended up costing $26,000. And so how did that get taken? Was that with the port and the city deciding to do that jointly, but we went over the budget?
The prior execution of prior years was flawed in some regard, in that when we reconciled with the port, the approved projects that were in our staff reports and at council meeting minutes was a little bit different than the Oxnard Harbor District. So we had to go through a process of reconciling all that stuff. The port had a variety of items that were kludged with other items that we had approved. And so the effort of going through the accounting equilibrium between the two agencies took a little bit of time. And so the cost estimates were not exact. And so there were under execution and over execution of all of those items in prior year approvals. So in order to clean that up, we had to reprogram, either within an execution year or move balances forward. And that's where you get the $227,000 to execute today.
Right, and so that means that we're gonna move forward on all those projects?
Yeah, the bottom line is we have $227,000 to execute today to support community projects. A value system and a priority system was created, and projects were identified and scored along those lines. Those are purely projects we've identified between a few members of council and staff, and it is the council's option to improve, modify, subtract, add any projects they see fit, and then we will socialize that with Oxnard Hybrid. The big event tonight, though, is to reconcile and reprogram that amount for this year.
I think some of us are curious as to what the process is once we approve this reconfiguration of the projects. How will we? What's the process for us looking at each one of them and determining its viability or whether or not it's still applicable or not? Will we do that as a city council, or will that be done in the port committee venue?
Madam Mayor, per the agreement in 2015, the projects will be socialized between the Oxnard Hybrid District and the city based on membership of 2 council members or 2 commissioners from each and staff from each. Okay. If those projects are deemed appropriate for the Community Benefit Fund, then the commissioners from the Oxnard Harbor District and the City Council will independently approve those projects.
Okay. So it seems to me that when we anticipate having this meeting with the port, that we have some communication with the rest of the council on what their desire is, and then we will need the council to really look at this list so that when we go into that meeting, we'll know what is viable, what's not viable. Has anything changed since the project was proposed? Is that correct? Will we be able to do that so we get more council input before we go to the next meeting?
The list you have available to you tonight is a recommendation only and subject to modification, redesign, reprioritization, rescoring. This is a set of projects that has been fairly well filtered and hopefully a fairly high value in terms of community benefit scoring, but it is subject to modification by the council.
Okay.
Prior to socialization with commission at OHD.
Okay, great.
So can I add something too for you?
Sure, go ahead, Mr. McDonald.
The one thing we do want to do is the amounts that have the negative that Councilmember Gama was referring to, those ones we need to approve those overages. That money has already been spent. We haven't requested it from the port, but the claim 1 and 2 that has been spent that produced those negative numbers is the total that's spent on the project. So the positive remaining would be a reprogram. The negative remaining, it's exceeded the original approval that the council gave. So in order to be considered by the port, it would have to be approved by the council to be submitted back to the port.
Okay, which is what we're doing tonight.
Right.
Okay. Any more questions for staff?
Hypothetically,
Councilman Rollins.
So if the council originally approved 30,000 and 40,000 was spent, who approved the extra 10,000? Was it as a hypothetical or one of these examples? How was that approved? The additional 10,000, was it just approved by whom? I don't know. And were we maybe as we move forward, I mean, if it's the original, if we approve 30,000 and a project's going to cost 40,000, shouldn't we know about it before we spend, before an additional $10,000 is spent?
Councilman Rollins, all great questions. That clearly didn't happen. And then we're trying to resolve that and reconcile it tonight.
And then the CIP, I see a number of these things are CIP projects. Are these already funded through the CIP so we can eliminate them from the list because they're already taken there? Or is there an advantage to paying for them through the community benefit fund?
Those items that say CIP are currently on the approved CIP budget items. They are eligible and recommended for conversion from general fund to community benefit fund based on the nature of those projects and their alignment to community benefit fund guidelines.
Okay, I guess there's one that it said the Miranda Park renovation structural analysis. Can you tell me what that is? I mean, I can guess what it might be, but can you tell me what it actually is?
The roofing structures at Miranda Park require design analysis before any renovations are done. It's a lower cost project, and it is the preemptive component to doing any rehab of Miranda Park buildings.
Okay, so then that will just do an analysis that we need a better roof, and then coming later will be the fact that we have to pay for a better roof.
That is correct, sir.
Okay. The community center lobby furniture, I thought we've already done that, haven't we? Or I remember hearing some report that we're doing that under some other CIP thing already. The lobby furniture and all that. Is that correct or no? Or
to my knowledge, at this date, there is no lobby furniture, and it has not been executed as part of the CIP, pending the completion of the NG project for the ceiling HVAC and lighting at the community center.
So in conversations that I've had, is there any advantage to, I mean, you have a fairly ambitious series of projects. I mean, can staff actually implement them, or should that be something that we hire somebody, contract someone out to be able to facilitate these in some timely manner?
Many of the projects are a cash donation to a variety of different nonprofit groups or fees paid for community benefit related environmental activities. A couple of projects, one in particular, Bubbling Springs Farmers Bridge, we have a labor committed from Seabees that want to volunteer, and we're just buying the material for that. And most of the other ones are either contract associated or within our ability to support via our own labor or procurement.
So everything in attachment 2, how much would that go over the $220,000 that we have to spend?
Based on the priority system, there is approximately $20,000 in excess of the 227. That is just to replace projects that may not be executed, or what has happened in previous years is we've under executed on some projects and we have a balance remaining, and I want to make sure that we have at least additional projects that are approved that we can execute without having to come back to council.
Okay.
Okay. So if there are no more questions, I'd like to proceed and read the public comment that was submitted on this item. Sound okay to you guys? Okay, thank you. This is from Jeffrey Scarberry to City Council webmail, CC Connors, Brad, Salinas, Andrew, subject Community Benefit Fund, dated Friday, May 29th, 1:07:28 p.m. City Council members, as you discuss potential uses for the Community Benefit Fund, please consider the possibility of bringing back the street pole banner program the City of Port Hueneme had in place but was terminated back in 2013 due to budget cuts. For many years prior to that, the city would put up banners at the major intersections along Ventura Road and Channel Islands Boulevard. In the summertime, the banners were patriotic themed, and in November, December, they were holiday themed. The patriotic banners along Ventura Road were especially nice as they also bordered the Navy base. At that time, the cost was $6,300 per year, which, if I remember correctly, was used to pay a contractor to put them up and take them down 4 times each year. Most of the brackets are still up and likely usable at the major intersections, although some might need to be replaced. The banner program was a relatively small budget item that, in my opinion, was worth it, has a way to beautify Hueneme and add some distinction to our main thoroughfares as people drove into and around town. The program was initially canceled in 2011, and then City Manager Dave Norman brought it back in 2012, but it was cut again as the budget situation became worse shortly thereafter. I had exchanged a couple of emails with former City Manager Rod Butler regarding this issue, and he expressed his support, but shortly thereafter he announced he was leaving, so that was that. If not the Community Benefit Fund, then possibly one of the cannabis dispensaries might consider sponsoring the program at some point. Thank you, Jeffrey Scarberry. Okay, this is not intended as a City Council meeting public comment, but rather just sharing an idea, has something to think about, if not now, then maybe later on. Thank you, Jeffrey, for your comments. I like the idea.
I've actually had some other constituents that have asked that very point over the last 6 to 8 months. You know, where to go? Why can't it come back now? I was never around when that happened, but obviously a good representation of the community liked it.
Mm-hmm. Okay, thank you. All right, so now we have, we're ready to move ahead, everyone? Okay. So the recommendation is to approve all amounts that have exceeded the original council approval for current revised amount approved. To discuss reprogramming unspent balances from projects prior to FY 2018-19 port operation contribution to new projects. And 3, establish a proposed project list for the use of FY 2018-19 year 5 port operation contributions of $111,176.97 combined with the under executed amount of $1,016,540 from prior years. With approval, the project list will be forwarded to the port for final mutual approval. Additionally, lower priority projects will also be included for potential execution should higher priority projects fail to proceed or fall below cost estimates. May I have a motion and a second?
I'm so moved.
Okay, thank you, Councilman Berg. And second was Councilman Gama? Your mic is, you're muted, Councilman Gama. Okay, thank you. And may I have a roll call vote, Madam Clerk?
Mayor Hernandez, if I may just clarify that roll call vote. So you're confirming that established list that was presented to you?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, I just wanted that to be for the record that list that was presented as the recommended list is what you're approving, and the amounts that have exceeded the original council approval.
Correct.
Okay, wonderful. I'll proceed with the roll call vote. Thank you for letting me clarify. Councilmember Berg?
Yes.
Councilmember Gama?
Gama has a clarifying question. So there's 3 recommendations on the staff report. So we are approving all 3 recommendations?
Yes.
Yes.
That would be correct.
Yes.
Okay. Councilmember Rollins?
Yes.
Mayor Hernandez?
Yes.
And Mayor Pro Tem Munoz Schnapp is absent for the record.
Okay.
Motion passes.
Okay, great. All right. Councilman Rollins. Okay, the vote's passed, Councilman. So
as a follow-up to this, there will be some method that we can review this on some kind of a regular basis so that if we find out some of these projects are no longer viable, that we can act on them, as opposed to finding out that projects that were approved years back turn out not to be viable, and we have money to spend, which we could have probably spent better along the way.
Mm-hmm. So I imagine
I guess that's to City Manager Connors.
Okay, go ahead, Mr. Connors.
Yes, Councilman Rollins. The intent here is to keep this a working, living document. We will continue to collect input from the community, from council, from staff, from visitors, perhaps. We will identify those relative to the scoring rubric that we discussed earlier, and the sense of urgency that we discussed earlier. And we will keep an active hot list. And when the funding is renewed each consecutive year, assuming we or the port exceeds $13 million in gross revenue, we will have a list of projects ready to present, socialize, and get approval to execute on. That other thing we'll do is we'll continue to reprogram funds, either identify under execution, over execution, and resolve that within the budget year, so that we don't have this issue 5 years in the future like we have now.
Okay. I just wanted to add that as a member of the port, a city port committee, I'm on that committee, and so is Mayor Pro Tem Sylvia Schnapp. So that's going to be our responsibility to ensure that we come back to council and get your input on possible changes to that list as we move forward.
Right. So there was 2 issues tonight that came up that kind of are similar. That was agenda item number 8, and then this one is that Phil, and I know there was a little reluctance with myself and Council Member Rollins in that we don't appear to have a process, and we just heard a great idea that it sounds like all of us probably would support. So how do we get that in the hopper, and what's the time frame for acting on a really good suggestion? Is it going to be a year or 2, or would we be able to act on that great suggestion we just heard from Jeffrey and get it up and running this year, perhaps? I mean, it's a great idea, but it doesn't sound like we'd be able to get to it until next year.
Councilman Gama, I will take that project. I like it too. I think I had never seen it before. I heard about it. It's a great input. We'll roll that back into the current list and score it, and it will have a home on a working list to move forward with.
Good.
Yep, the Channel Islands Harbor District has those banners over the Harbor Boulevard Bridge. I don't know if they're there now. I know Oxnard's done them too, especially when they have the Dallas Cowboys come for camp, and they look striking, and they do draw a really nice attention to the beauty of the city. So I would definitely like to see those on that list. Yes, Councilman Rollins.
Yeah, I was just as a reinforcement to that. In other cities, whenever they had any kind of festival or something that they wanted to tell the entire area that it's coming up. For example, the beach festival, the banana festival, whatever, they had nice banners going across Main Street so that people knew, hey, this is coming up. And it was done in the same manner where you paid somebody to they stored those banners and they put them up and took them down periodically, or based on the event happening. And it's a great idea.
Okay, so I have lost my place. That was all approved, right? These are just extra comments. Okay, thank you. It's getting late. I'm tired. Okay. All right, so we're now moving to council member reports, comments, and requests for future agenda items. Councilman Berg, would you like to go first?
Yeah, I can. I have nothing to report on this time. We're starting our first week, so there'll be committee meetings going on beginning tomorrow through the rest of the week. Transportation Commission, Gold Coast Transit, SCAG, and others. I'll report out on our next meeting.
Thank you. Councilman Gama. Oh, you're on mute.
I was really excited tonight about my inspiration, so I wanted to show everybody Nick's book, and I want to encourage everybody out there. You need to be uplifted. If you need to be inspired, search this guy out, because this person is the most amazing, inspirational speaker you'll ever see, and he's a Ventura County resident. And I hope I did justice with my inspiration tonight, because I've read both of his books, and they're both amazing. And secondly, I've asked before, and I want to ask again. Safety is our #1 priority, and I noticed that we jumped into this sidewalk inspection plan, and I noticed that there's a number of areas with significant tripping hazards in and around the entire city. And so I just want to keep making that request to get an update and know that we're moving to rid the city of those risks for our residents. So perhaps we could get an update on the sidewalk inspection progress. And I have one more. And as you know, race relations are very hot topic today. And what can we do as a city to show where we're at with race relations? Several months ago, I made a low-key request regarding the salt shaker display in the museum, Port Hueneme Historical Society Museum. And there's several hundred shakers in there, and there's about 10, maybe 12 of them that are probably best described as being racist. And I took some photos and I showed them to people and asked them, hey, what do you think about this? And about everybody I showed them to said, those things are racist. Where are those at? And today I made a low-key request a couple months ago, asking perhaps removing them from the museum. And COVID came along and the museum's been closed, so nobody could get offended if the museum's closed. But I anticipate that the museum's going to be opening up soon. And I did a Google search for racist cartoons and figurines, and much to my surprise, some of the very pieces that I find offensive are out there as examples of what dehumanizing cartoon and figurines are. So I'm hoping that we as a city could remove anything that is insensitive to racial relations. And I believe that those are, and I hope that staff could take a look at it and try and come up with a plan to not offend anybody that comes into the museum in the future. And that's it.
Thank you, Councilman Gama. Councilman Rollins?
I guess a repeat of what I had asked for earlier, but this is the time to ask for a future agenda item. I'd like to get a progress report on the NG on what we've spent and done so far and what will be happening in the next 6 months to a year. So that's as a council request, our agenda request. I will be attending a REACH meeting this week, so I will give an update next time. And then frankly, this is just a compliment. Like in times like this, I think we're fortunate to have a very professional police force that not only protects our community, but shows compassion and good common sense as far as like dealing with all the different sensitive and difficult problems that we're having. That's it.
Okay, thank you, Councilman Rollins. For me, I'm continuing to participate in the Wednesday elected officials briefing on the COVID-19 pandemic. It's very informative, and if you haven't tuned in, it's not too late. It's a good way to catch up on information that's going on countywide. It occurs 10:30 a.m. on Wednesday mornings. We're doing weekly disaster council calls as well, bringing that information back to you, the larger body of the city council. We have a RDP strategic planning meeting on this week, And we're going to be discussing some upcoming opportunities for military assistance to civilian authorities. So I will look forward to bringing that back to City Council. And then have VRSD. Oh, I think that's actually been canceled. I think our VRSD meetings have been canceled. But I did want to mention a thank you to Chief Salinas and to Scott and to all those who participated in the Memorial Day video. I had mentioned it at the last meeting that I wanted to do something, and then it turned out we were running out of time, but this team made it happen. So I'm just very proud of the work that they did and the amount of people that they were able to gather and get on that video within a few days. So you guys did a great job. I wanted to make sure you were thanked and recognized for that. I also wanted to ask to recognize Andre Harutunian, who was this student volunteer who provided 10 weeks of volunteer service to us, to the city. I'd like to request that we have him on an upcoming agenda. Doesn't have to be right away, but in maybe the next couple of meetings, some recognition for him. And then I wanted to also talk about our essential workers, our city workers. All of them are essential because we're such a small city. But I think it's really an important time that we support our staff and our employees. I think it's important that we consider how the COVID-19 pandemic has caused them to incur additional duties. If you ever walk into any place that's so far reopened, or a restaurant facility or a store, there's a lot of extra responsibilities that employees have to take on now in order to be safe and healthy and compliant with the COVID-19 pandemic. And so I just want to ask for council and the public's acknowledgement of what our employees behind the scenes are experiencing, what they're going through, and to be supportive of what they are, and to publicly recognize them whenever you have an opportunity. And when you have a complaint, maybe think second about delivering that complaint, maybe put yourself in their shoes and how they might feel. But I think our staff and our employees really deserve our support out there. And I just wanted to make sure that that they know we're thinking of them, and we understand that these additional duties and responsibilities have not been easy, but they've been doing well from what I've observed. And now we have the riots emanating from this senseless killing of George Floyd in Minneapolis, Minnesota. And this has placed more responsibilities, especially on our first responders and the support staff in our police department. So I think it's important that we understand that our employees are facing additional new demands. Important to support our employees the best we can, considering the current situation that we're in right now. And everybody's had to adjust and adapt. And so it's been a difficult time for everybody. And I think it's an important time for us to show and model the behavior that we want Huenemans to be. And we want people to care about each other. And we want to be nice to each other. And we want to support each other. And I hope that we can continue to do that here in our city. And I think we need to be patient. We need to be patient with staff. And when we ask for reports back and we ask for new projects, let's keep that in perspective. And let's remember that there are priorities. And right now, COVID-19 is consuming a lot of staff's time. It's consuming a lot of our time. Now with this riot situation, who knows what additional burdens are going to be placed on our staff's shoulders. So are just asking everybody to be sensitive to our employees and our staff, understanding the demands that are currently placed on them. Just a moment, Mr. Gama, I'm not quite done yet. And then I wanted to also encourage a quick remedy to coming up with a process for recognizing electeds and city officials. I was very disappointed to see that item was pulled tonight. John Sharkey is not doing well, and for him to sit and listen to us, talk about how we're going to go about recognizing him. I just hope that we can come back and find some solution for Mr. Sharkey. And I feel very strongly about that. So I hope those procedures get done quickly, and I hope that we find a way to recognize him. And that concludes my comments. Yes, Councilman Gama.
I just heard for the first time that there was a Memorial Day celebration involving, I guess, yourself and others. And I'm wondering why we find out now after the fact, and why with an invite sent to the other council members, and I've never seen a video, and how is it that we find out about it tonight?
Well, I did mention it at the last city council meeting that I wanted to do something for Memorial Day, maybe a video. And then we decided that we were going to do a montage of the people who normally speak at our Memorial Day celebrations. And so Andrew ran with the, I'm sorry?
I spoke at the last one.
Okay, but, okay. I can't.
I feel like, you know, we as a council have to be a team, and we all have to be a part of Memorial Day celebrations. And it kind of feels like perhaps we weren't invited. And I think, you know, I know I heard you say that, but no invite came out advising us that something was happening.
Yeah, I apologize for that. It wasn't meant to omit anybody, but we came up with this idea to do this montage, and we wanted to include the people that we typically have every year, which would be Julia Brownlee and Jackie Irwin and Larry Downing and Kelly Long. So it wasn't, I think when you spoke, it was maybe a special agenda of some sort. You spoke on something specific, you were part of that agenda. Well, the agenda changes every year, and because of COVID, we weren't able to put it together like we do. But that was what we came up with, and I'm surprised you didn't see it because it was posted on the city websites. So,
you know, I think, well, it's upsetting to me personally, because I would have loved to have been a part of it. And I think we need to do better to keep us operating as a team. We are all equally elected, 5 members of us, and you know, I'm disappointed.
yeah, I appreciate your comment, Councilman Gama. I do, and you know, we were doing the best we can, but we all have a responsibility also to keep ourselves informed and to pay attention to our own websites and to read the situation updates that come through from Chief Salinas. So, you know, that's our duty as council members to make sure we stay informed and participate in those Wednesday briefings. All that information's been provided to us. So
I do participate in the Wednesday briefings. Again, I don't want to belabor the point, but I think in the future we need to be more inclusive of the entire council.
Yeah, and I believe we've done that. We've tried to invite you to participate in some of the other events. So the other video tapings that we did. So
issue.
Yes, Councilman Rollins.
Yeah, I just want to reinforce the statements that you made as far as developing a process to recognize what I call the heroes of Hueneme, different people throughout the ages that have done really good things that have made Hueneme a better place and improved the quality of life for our community in general, and that we have any process is not going to be totally objective, but at least if we have a basic criteria that we can move forward, at least I think that it's as open a process as possible, because all of these people, including Mr. Sharkey, anybody who's spent that many years dealing with all the issues and stuff like that, and not only him, but other people, I think we need to have a process that is positive and not divisive. So anyway.
Yeah, thank you for that. Thank you for that. All right. If there are no more comments, I will go ahead and adjourn the meeting. I just lost my place here again. Our next meeting, Madam Clerk, can you give me the date on our next meeting, please?
The next meeting will be at 6:30 on Monday, June 15th.
Okay, we will adjourn to that meeting, and I just want to do one more thing, if you can bear with me here while I scramble through the, okay. So we are going to adjourn the meeting, and I just want to put this reminder out to the public, as we do every week, every meeting. Detailed information and update about COVID-19 can be found on the City Port Hueneme's emergency website at www.porthuenemeemergency.org. I'm going to go ahead and adjourn the meeting. It is 9:39. Thank you, everybody, for your participation and hanging in there till 9:30, almost 10 o'clock. Have a good week, and we'll see you guys at the next meeting. Thank you.